Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anomaly Cast. My name's Benjamin Alexander, and today my guest is Lisa Vankula Donovan, aka wannabe entomologist. I think we have pretty different political opinions and things like that, but we share a passion for arthropods, and I think she's just a sweet person. I'm so grateful she took the time to chat with me. She's a saint. If you're listening, Lisa, just know you are much appreciated. And as you guys listen, you'll learn that there's a lot more than meets the eye to Lisa, aka wannabe entomologist. Enjoy.
You got a nice little studio there.
It looks like I always wonder what people think when they see inside of my room because it's
Yeah.
so it's so it's so odd. I'm actually at an apartment and
Yeah.
sometimes the maintenance guys will come through and you can't really see, but I have skulls like all along the wall here. You can kind of see one
The
right
bones. Yeah.
there. And I have some like taxidermy and stuff like that. So
Nice.
the guys come in and they're like kind of weirded out. Uh,
I had a dead huntsman, curled up dead huntsman, kind of like this one actually,
yeah.
in the dash of my car for like 2 years. And I got my car serviced often because I got it from this car lot that I don't know, it ended up being the starter, but it was brand new for me off the lot. And then I had trouble for like 6 months. So I kept having to take it back and get a loaner car. And that thing was in the dash the whole time. And I also have this huge like stuffed spider as well in my car.
hmm
And I was known as the spider lady there. And everybody was scared to get in the car. And only one guy would get in the driver's seat because that spider was right there.
That's
So I got
that's
made fun of for
hilarious
that
and sad. I was gonna say, do you feel like you won the lottery as far as living in Australia?
Yeah, I do actually. It's funny because before I met my kid's dad, who was living in America,
hmm
he lived there for about, well, we lived there for about 6 years. I had a, like, those travel guides. I can't remember the name of them now. They're books and they're for a specific location in the world. And it gives you all the information. They're called something.
Travel guide
Um,
sounds good
Travel
enough.
guide, but it's like a specific it's a specific name. And I had it for Australia. Years before I met him, I was going to go to a like a big property because you can go and you can essentially just be a backpacker. You can go work at a big property for room and board and just get to live the Australian experience. So I had that in my mind. I was going to do it one day. And then life kind of took a different turn. And then long story short, in 2003, I met the kid's dad who was Australian.
Hmm.
I was actually sworn in to leave for delayed entry to the army in 6 months.
So you were born
And
where?
I was born in Ohio and raised in Indiana.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, and he was actually traveling over there and training horses. He was a big horse guy. And then so we ended up meeting and falling in love and had our first child. And then when I got pregnant with our second, him and his brother, who was also traveling there, they were like, we're wanting to go back to Australia. Would you go? And I was like, yep. How fast can I pack?
Yeah.
I was like, heck
So
yeah. And then,
how old were you when you first moved to Australia?
oh gosh, let me do the math. So I think I was 36. I know I'm
Okay.
a lot. I'm 49.
Okay.
But let me do the math. So yeah. Yeah, 36. So
Wow.
it's been a
So
while now.
I'm assuming that your interest in insects and arthropods has something that's been with you lifelong.
I have always been that kid that
Yeah.
when I was younger, I had a snapping turtle that I brought home and kept it in a wash bucket
Uh-huh.
with a rock, like literally the turtle and a rock. And then I would go dig worms out of the yard and then throw it in and watch him dip below and grab the worm. And then he kept escaping because he'd get up on the rock and go over the edge, and my mom would find him in the house. So she was like, get rid of it. So I painted my name on his back, which is probably
I
horrible.
have never been to Ohio, but that sounds super Ohio.
It is. We played in a lot of creeks.
I've
But yeah,
I've always been that person too. Um,
yeah.
gosh, I think my dad said that when I was a kid, he was like, you would always say that you wanted to have a museum, or
Yeah.
you wanted to be an entomologist, or you wanted to, or the other one was a bus driver, which
Oh,
was
wow.
like different. I remember the bus driver one. I don't remember the other ones, but I
I
have
wanted to be a nun for a while.
that. Very interesting. Okay, so do you
Yeah.
have a like you grew up religious or?
My father's side was Catholic. My mom's side was pretty much, hey, life's good, treat people great. And then I would go to church with friends just to experience something. So I was always interested in religion, but obviously the Catholicism was kind of huge. And I don't know, I don't know why it appealed to me. I just thought it seemed like a really fun way to live life when
Hmm,
I was younger. And then I grew up and it had nothing to do with wanting to be abstinent or really being heavy into God. I was huge into Mother Teresa. That was probably part of it. And I kind of wanted to be like her. But
it's a role
then, yeah,
model.
yeah. And so I think that's why. But then I grew up and was like, oh, yeah, that really looks like it would suck. But just having to live
Yeah,
that strict of a lifestyle. And yeah.
my 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 mom's side of the family was all Catholic,
Oh,
and
wow.
my dad's side was all Christian.
Uh huh.
And my mom's side was always because my mom became a Christian, and then because of my dad, and
Yeah.
then she became kind of outcast of the family because she
Yeah.
left the Catholic Church, and so it
Oh, wow.
didn't go too well. What is
Yeah.
are you religious now or?
I'm not. Back at university when I was still at home, I took like a religion class and studied Buddhism and Hinduism and you name it, all of it, and found that very fascinating. Got kind of heavy into Buddhism for a while. I still, like, if someone put a gun to my head and said, you have to pick one, I'd probably pick Buddhism.
Mm,
Um, just a lot of all of the tenets kind of speak to me. And I feel like this will sound weird, but I meditated with some Buddhist monks from Sri Lanka
mhm,
years and years ago. I lost a son and I was like searching for something to give me peace. And I went to this
mm,
temple in Ohio, nonetheless. And there were three monks from Sri Lanka that were there essentially just volunteers just to spread the word of Buddhism or whatever. And I went there and they teach people how to meditate and they teach you the Dharma. And I really like latched onto that and was like, this is great. And was asking him questions and I said, well, what if I wanted to go out and be, a Seventh Day Adventist tomorrow? And he said, look, if that makes you the best person you can be, then go be that.
mm.
And I was like, nobody of any other religion ever says that. They're never
Yeah.
like, you say, if I want to be a Buddhist, they're like, oh, you'll go to hell or something like that. And Buddhists were like, whatever makes you the best version of yourself you can be, go be that, go do that. And
Hmm.
I was always like, really? And they kept telling me it's not a religion. It's not a religion. And I was like, that's kind of what pulled me to it. So I'd say I'm more gravitated towards that. But again, there's some parts of that I don't 100% vibe with any of them. So I'm one of those kind of hippie chicks that is like one with the earth and loves bugs and animals. And
Would you say you're agnostic?
yes, yes,
That's
yes.
fair.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that I was watching a stream the other day of, I don't know if you know who Dr. K is. He's a
No.
he's a psychologist.
Okay.
He's known as Healthy Gamer on Twitch, and
Oh, okay.
he's kind of like into gaming, but then he likes to interview people who are like Twitch streamers, and
Oh,
he kind of
wow.
sees like how their mental health is and this, that, and the other thing. But he said something interesting the other day. He was saying that he asked the guy like, "What is belief? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think belief is?" And the guy had given some answer. I don't remember because it wasn't very good, but he was like, "Well, belief is basically something that you can't prove. So um, you can believe in God, and you can believe that there isn't a God, but at the end of the day, it's your belief. It's not
Yeah.
something that can be proven in fact."
Right.
And that's the issue that I would have with people who are atheist,
Mm-hmm.
because they're making a definitive
Right.
statement that
Right.
yeah, there is no God at all, and you guys are all crazy or whatever. And so
Yeah.
um, it's interesting his perspective on belief. I thought that was a good way of defining it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I feel the same way. Like I just think at the end of the day, none of us know how we got here. Like we can,
Hmm.
we can go through the whole like
Yeah.
history of the planet and all of the scientific stuff that we know,
Hmm.
but it's really, I don't know, I don't see how anybody can be definitive one way or the other. I just know from my personal experiences that I've experienced enough from some other place that there's something, but I would never be prideful enough to say this is what it is. I
Yeah.
just think that I have a belief
Yeah.
that there is something after this.
I was raised Christian, and I would say that I'm Christian, but I don't go by. I don't like to say Christian anymore. I
Mhm.
like to say that I believe the Bible, because I
Yeah.
think there's such an attachment to the word.
Mhm.
Um, it's like using
Definitely.
any word that's used differently today, like gay, for example. You wouldn't
Yeah.
use it to explain, oh, I'm gay, like I'm happy.
Right.
No one would like
Right.
take your interpretation as that. So
Right.
when I say I'm Christian, they have a certain set of interpretations that come along with that. And so
Exactly.
I don't really like to be attached to those interpretations
Yeah.
because
Most of the
um,
time they're wrong.
yeah, yeah,
There's-
and yeah, so I believe the Bible, but I'm not married to those ideas.
Yeah.
So I'm not an ideologue.
Mhm.
I can see other ideas and
Right.
accept that those could be true.
And I think that's
And
what's important.
yeah,
Yeah.
is to have that open mind. And
Yeah.
so many people that are religious or atheist or um, those belief systems that say something definitive,
Hmm.
they still they still claim it as fact.
Right.
And I don't claim it as fact because I don't know. And it's
Right.
impossible for me to know.
Right.
But again, I believe that. I believe that.
Right.
And I live my life as if it's true,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
And you know what? Like the monk told me, if being a Christian is what makes you live your life in that way, to where you're being the best possible person you can be, then that's what's best for you. That's what they want you to do. I think that's what everybody should do,
Mm,
regardless of belief. Just live if being this or that makes you the best person you can be and treat people with kindness, then that's what people need to do instead of, I know some close family members are a certain religion that just believe if you're gay you're going to hell and that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And that's the kind of stuff that throws me off a bit,
mm.
is sort of like, you know
Homosexuality is an interesting thing because I think so many people in the church and religious people look at it as like it's different than anything else.
right.
But the fact is that it's not, because
Right.
the Bible, if you look at what the Bible says, um,
Mhm.
gluttony is a sin,
Yeah.
lying is a sin. And so for people to, be lying, eating too
Hmm.
much, whatever the thing is that they're doing, but then they're saying, oh, homosexuality, like homosexuals are going to go to hell. It's like
Yeah.
that's not different.
Yeah.
That's
Like
uh,
that one sin will get you to hell, but everything else that they're
right.
mostly
If
doing
you want to
anyway.
be consistent by what the Bible says, those are all
Hmm.
the same.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, you have a lot of people that are very religious that latch on to the homosexuality thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's two parts to that. I think one of them is the um, I can't even say it, LGBTQT
LGBTQ.
plus community. There's kind of like an attachment to that, like an identity to
Yeah.
their sexuality. And
Yeah.
I don't think that your identity should be your sexuality. I think that
Mm.
you are more than that. I think you're more than your race. I think you're more than
Yeah.
your sexuality. I think you're more than your belief system.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's an issue when you fully identify with something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I can see why they do,
Hmm.
just because for so many years you
Yeah.
couldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
You couldn't live your life the way you wanted to. So now it's like, okay, now I have this identity
Hmm.
and I'm proud of it and I want to. That's what, so I understand why they want to be a part of that,
Hmm.
because, for so many years you just couldn't,
Yeah,
you couldn't live your life the way you were and you had to hide everything. So
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So probably should get back to insights. Yeah, so that story that you're just telling reminds me of myself. I had a emperor scorpion, African emperor scorpion,
Oh wow.
as my first pet when I was like 19. And he died, I don't know, 8 years ago now, something
Oh
like that.
wow. Yeah.
And I had kept his body forever. And I was like, I don't know, I want to do something with it one day. And
Yeah.
I just had it. And
Yep.
eventually I pinned and framed it. I learned how to do all that type of stuff. And
Nice.
that I got into, like, I articulated this fox skeleton right here. I got into
Nice.
this type of stuff because I just had all these pets and they kept
Hmm.
dying. Because
Yeah.
when you have insects, they just don't live that long,
Yeah.
or you just don't know how to take care of them. And
Right.
it's difficult, especially I've kept a lot of like centipedes and things like that. And they all have different, like, um, slightly different like humidity levels or
Right.
whatever it
Yep.
might be. And it's hard to keep up with each species and really kind
Yeah.
of understand it. And sometimes the internet doesn't even know. So you're kind of
Yeah,
on your
that's
own.
right. That is right. I found that out when I started my first bug that I ever kept, I think was a stick insect. Can't remember if it was a spider or a stick insect. I think it was stick insects.
Mm,
But that's what I found out is you just get some of the information. I have since put a lot of information out there. And I think it's funny sometimes on my account, people A assume I'm Australian,
hmm.
and then B, a lot of people will meet me in person and I'll start talking about bugs and they'll start telling me about things that I've raised that I know like years of history about. And I'll think, I know more about your flora and fauna that you have here than you do. But because I'm American, they'll instantly start schooling me, but they're just not a lot of people around here, especially I'd say it's more so in Australia. And I hate to put this out there, but I think in America it's much more common, I guess, to keep insects. Maybe
Hmm.
I think I could be wrong, but it's much more common there, I think, to have it as a hobby. Where here, there's definitely a hobby here, but it's a lot lower numbers that actually do it. So there's not a lot of, there's a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of things that I follow that um, play a website called Brisbane Insects. It's a man that kept that up for years. I don't think he updates it any longer, but a lot of good information on there. So there's a few people around in Australia, but I can tell you I know every single one of them. And the certain insects that I keep, it was really difficult at first to even find any information. You could find the basic stuff and you've probably found this where you look it up online to get educated on whatever it is. And it will be the very basic information of it takes them, a couple years to grow to adulthood, but they won't tell you how many molts. They won't tell
Hmm.
you, certain things like that, and or other food sources that you could use for them or whatever. And I've
Hmm.
had to kind of stumble through that, and like you said, lose some along the way because the humidity. I raised the peppermint stick insect is normally from further north, and first time I got that, I was like, yeah, just put it in one of my regular old mesh cages that I have, and started losing them. It's like, what's going on? So then as they were younger, I put them in plastic containers that I had soldered holes around. And some people will kind of offshoot here, but some people get on my internet or on my Instagram and say, oh, look at that. And look at that enclosure. They need a better enclosure. And you're like, the reason they're in that enclosure is because I'm trying to keep the humidity in while they're nymphs. And so I can raise them without them dying. Once they get past a certain stage, then I can move
Hmm.
them to a proper enclosure. But I've had to learn that. I've stumbled through that and lost a lot of those at first because the humidity needed to be at a certain level. And then you have Goliath stick insects, which are from this area, and you can hatch 100 a day, in your garage floor. And they'll be crawling around your house, no problems whatsoever, because they're so easy to keep. But yeah, it just depends on which insect, where you're at. And it's just, yeah, it's a real stumbling block trying to figure it out. And then, like you said, find the information. Not a lot is out there. It's not super definitive here in Australia anyway on a lot of things. A lot of it's
Yeah,
still being uncovered.
I think that's just something across the board because, well, not across the board. There are definitely insects that are more common to keep than others.
Yeah.
But then with the stick insects, like what you're saying is people are making assumptions based on one species and they're applying it to all of them. And it's like
Yes.
they can be so different, so vastly
Yeah.
different in their habitat and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I found this out with centipedes specifically because I I had this interest in centipedes and I knew like one guy who knew stuff about it. I don't know if you know who Michael Emistry is. He's from
Um,
Nevada, and he goes by the Centipede Whisperer. He's kind of been in and
no.
out. He's kind of been in and out
Okay.
of the hobby. He knows more about centipedes probably than anyone in the world, and
Wow.
nobody knows who he is. And I
Oh,
and yeah, and so
that's so
I'm
cool.
like I've been like kind of friends with him here and there, and we've talked
Mm.
to and I bought a few centipedes from him, but he's gotten envenomated so many times and just to test
Wow.
it, and he's
Yeah.
done so much behavioral testing, and I was like,
Yeah.
dude, you need to write a book before you die
That would be
because if you die, that information's gone. And
you need to keep that information then.
yeah, because
For
um,
him.
I had looked on the internet for like any information on centipedes, and I'm like, okay, the internet is really vast, but it's
Mhm.
shallow. And
Yes.
there's like two books on centipedes that I know of. One of them is anatomy, and one of them is in Russian. So
Oh
I'm
wow.
like, I can't, there's neither of these that really help you as far as behavior
Yeah.
and
I
human
do
interaction and whatnot.
I do know a guy. You might even follow him. Bugs in Biology.
Hmm,
He's on Instagram.
I don't know. I
Check him
follow a lot
out.
of accounts that sound like that,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure.
I'll try to tag somebody and be like, biology under no, it was underscore biology.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
can't remember any of their names.
But what about
I'll
him?
link you up to that guy though.
What
Sorry. Go ahead.
what does he do specifically?
Yeah, he's mostly centipedes, but
Okay.
he also does a lot of he's here in Australia, but he also does a lot of spiders as well. He's done a few really good YouTube videos on the deadliest spiders. So he just
Mm,
I keep meaning to post it. He does make some long videos. So I think a lot of people just, how the internet is, they just check out after a couple minutes.
right.
But some of his videos are really informative and he goes through each species and all the ones that everybody's like, oh my God, stay away, like the white tail and all of that. And he goes through all of the behavior, their venom toxicity and blah, blah, blah. But he does a lot of spider stuff and a lot of centipede stuff. So I think he used to be called Lair of Centipedes. Is his
Hmm.
name used to be that? Now it's Bugs in Biology, but he
Okay.
was Lair of Centipedes forever. So,
Yeah, he
and he
probably wanted to
mostly,
diversify his portfolio there.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's at least more of a unique name, so people would
yeah,
find you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He was
Yeah,
my go-to centipede guy because I know virtually nothing about centipedes.
yeah.
So,
So Michael, I've seen a bunch of videos of him. Like he's like, oh, now we're gonna test this in venomation, and I'm like, this guy's crazy. But he knows so much. He knows so
yeah.
much. He had Scolopendra gigantea. I don't know if you
Oh,
are familiar.
that
Um,
really, really,
yes, or
oh my gosh.
Galoponesis. I had a Galoponesis for a few years, and what
Oh,
he
wow.
had done with his is he could just pick it up, and he could pet it. He could hold it
Wow.
by what like he was holding it like this, and it was
I
totally
feel
chill.
like I feel like I've seen some of his videos then because I have
You
seen a
might
video at some
have,
point.
because if you look on YouTube for anything centipedes, he's gonna pop up. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure. And he's like, yeah, the reason why I can do this is because she knows me really well.
that's
And
insane.
just the behavior, he's like hand fed them, he pets them, like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Things that you would never expect from a centipede. that level of
Yeah.
like, I guess, self-awareness maybe is
Yeah.
the term that I'm looking for. And
Yeah.
I've hand fed some of my centipedes. I've held a lot of my centipedes, which most
Yeah.
people in the hobby are like never handle a centipede
Right.
automatically.
Right.
And what he and I have kind of come to find is like first first impressions are everything with centipedes and people. So if a centipede's first
Yes.
impression is like aggressive, and then it
Yeah.
thinks you're a predator, and it's always going to think you're a predator. But
Right.
if you let it come to you on its own terms, then it's like, what is this? And
Yep.
then you can feed it, and then it's like, okay, this thing feeds me. You know,
Right.
there's a relationship that kind of builds there, and
Yep.
it's very interesting. Speaking of like diets, there's argument of like, oh, do centipedes eat fruit? Do centipedes eat this or that? And we have seen centipedes eating fruit on some occasions.
Yeah.
And but there's some people that are in the professional scene of that that'd be like, no, never, they would never do that
Right.
because they don't have the hours, they don't have the time
To,
spent.
to put in to even check it out. Yep.
Hmm.
And that's what I think, because you probably get it on the centipede stuff. I get it all the time on the spiders. Somehow, some way, you're taking this creature that people just say is aggressive and will just bite you, and that's
Hmm.
the end of it. It's just the way they are. They have no other way of rationalizing what you are, and they're just always going to hate you and want to bite you. And that's not true. And I have found that out with spiders
Hmm.
big time. And I've had spiders that I would say that spiders I've known for a long time that I can handle. I absolutely no problem put my hand in there when they're laying on an egg sac. And everybody says, oh, they'll attack you then for sure. And it's like, no, they won't actually. They're just worried about protecting their egg sac. And if they
Hmm.
know me and I reach in, even if they don't know you, huntsmen specifically,
Hmm.
I should say. But I would even say most spiders guarding an egg sac, unless it was like maybe a funnel web, I wouldn't mess with. But
Hmm.
um, most spiders are just worried about self-preservation, offspring preservation and egg sac, and that's what they're worried about. And if I reach in and I'm reaching in to grab their water dish and I'm not going like this at her and she's not seeing any type of threat, there's no reason for her to move off that sac and do anything to, try to waste venom on this huge creature.
Right.
But, I've found spiders to be the same way. Like they've gone from, I've gone out and found the only two, I say this all the time, the only two threat displays I've ever seen, and I've been handling huntsmen for years now. I've seen hundreds, held hundreds, is two wild males. They were both male. They were both in the wild, like found them under tree bark and they surprised them and they did the threat display. And both of those I held at least a half an hour later. Like I caught them, put them, I do re-release them,
Hmm.
but I've held those. And it's just, I think, of a matter of, like you said, immediately you're a threat. As soon as they see you, you're a threat. They need to get rid of the threat. They're cornered just like a snake. They
Hmm.
need, they need to get that threat away. And once they realize you're not a threat, it's more about, okay, how can I get out of here?
Hmm.
And so I don't know, but I'd love to find out more about how spiders can sense, because everybody asks me all the time, do your spiders know you? Well, I mean, they have thousands of hairs all over them that sense everything in their environment. So I would assume, you know, a baby can sense its mother when it's laying on it, you
Hmm.
know, for various reasons. And I'm assuming that a spider can sense the same human being over and over and over and over again,
Right. You
because
have a
I've had,
different scent.
yeah, and I'm
You
sure
have a
they would,
different way of handling. You have like
yeah,
everyone has different mannerisms, and
right,
like there's so many ways for them to identify you,
right.
specifically you.
And I always would do the same thing. I had this certain way of talking to where I know they can't technically hear, but they can, the vibration to where I use my pitch of my voice and I say the same thing the same way every time I get in the cage. And I think that's sort of, I have a tadpole that I'm doing that
Wait,
to
so
now.
huntsmans can't hear,
Um,
or spiders can't
spiders,
hear?
spiders, I believe I've I'm stupidly ignorant to this fact, but I read one point that they don't hear like us, but it's more vibrational. And so when they're hearing, it's more of a vibration and a pitch. It's not, they can't hear me going, hello, how are you today? From
Hmm.
what I understand. So yeah,
That's wild. I've never heard of that before, which is
yeah,
interesting because I don't often hear things like about insects that I haven't heard before. That's
yeah.
cool. I've
It's all
never
just,
heard that. That's
I
cool.
don't believe that they even have eardrums or anything
Yeah, it
like that.
doesn't
It's
seem
just
like they would.
all of the sensory hairs and all of that. And it's not, they're not hearing us. So I could say you're the cutest in the whole world, and they're not going to know that I'm saying
Hmm.
that, but they're going to feel the vibration and the pitch and whatever. So
Hmm.
that's why I speak to them the same way with the same pitch and
Hmm.
kind of up close. And so they get used to that.
Hmm.
And yeah, my son brought home a tadpole. Well, he brought home three, but we lost two. But we have him now, and he's just getting ready to sprout his legs. And he comes up to the edge of the little container, and I lean down and I talk, thinking, okay, the vibration of my voice will go in here. And now he comes up and he just looks at you instead of hiding under all the moss and stuff. He comes up. It's very cute. So
Yeah,
I think
he's
creatures
very
are a
used
lot
to you.
more. Yeah, I think creatures are get a lot more used to us, and they're a lot more intelligent than we give them credit for. But I don't know the science behind it. I'm a hobby keeper, but I find it very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things that are like that. Especially like sea life, because we don't know anything about the ocean.
Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
so little about the ocean. And I think I heard something about octopus, how they're like as smart as like a 2-year-old human. And then
Yeah.
if they were to live longer, they would get even smarter because they're like able
That's
to learn or something
amazing.
like that or pass on information.
That's
And
amazing.
um, yeah, it's phenomenal, but they just don't live long enough. And it's like, it's so crazy. Have you seen that? There's like
Uh,
a
My
security video
octopus
or
teacher.
something. What's
Oh,
that? Oh, there's like a security camera at an aquarium, and this octopus sneaks over to the other aquariums. He like sneaks through a tube or something and eats like the crabs or something in the place next to him. But every time the security guard walks by, he makes sure that he's like in his own place so they he doesn't get seen. It's so
that's
interesting.
great. That's exactly what my 2-year-old did with cookies. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it's what you were saying about self-preservation. I think
Mm,
this is a huge misunderstanding about predators in general.
yeah.
And I think that because a lot of insects and spiders are all predators, um, they get a bad rap and they get thrown into the predator bowl as well because
Yeah.
you know that like anything that's a predator, for the most part, is misunderstood.
Right.
And it's misunderstood to one extreme or another. Like, for example, bears.
Mm,
A lot of people are like, we got to protect the bears from the hunters. We got to protect the bears from people and whatnot. But they don't really
yeah.
understand like you have you have to have population control. If you
Mm,
don't have some way of controlling how many bears there are, they're going to start
right.
eating people. And
Right.
there's a reason why I'm here in California. There's a reason why there's no grizzly bears in California. It's because when
Yeah.
we got here, they were eating everyone's kids. That's
Yeah.
why. There's a very valid reason. And so
Right.
I'm not saying, hey, let's wipe out the bears, but that's why it
Right.
happened
Yeah.
because people were afraid to go outside at night. They're afraid to, be around these massive bears that were just going to snatch
Right.
you if they saw it as an opportunity. And
Right.
that's real life. And
Right.
people don't seem to make that connection a lot of
Yeah.
times. But also they don't make the connection of a predator is not going to put itself in harm in order to get food because it wants
Right.
to live. It wants to
Right.
self-persevere, right? So um, you see, like, I recently saw the Jurassic Park 3, I'm guessing it is, the newest one that's coming out.
I
And the
haven't seen.
Raptors are just like going after the guy and they're just risking their entire mind, body, and soul to do so. And I'm like, there's no way. if a
Yeah.
raptor was alive now, that it basically suiciding to get you,
Right.
you know?
It's so
It's
much funner in the movies to put it like that, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, and it's one of those things. I don't know if you've heard of, there's a cultural term for this, and I don't know what it's called, but as the story goes, there's like two tribes of people, and one
Mm,
tribe believes that porcupines can shoot quills and they'll poison you and kill you, and then the other
yeah.
tribe doesn't believe anything about porcupines, and porcupines are whatever. So
Yeah.
you ask the question, which tribe is more likely to get porcupine quills in them? It's the
Yeah.
ones that don't believe anything about it.
Right.
Even though the other tribe believes a complete lie about the porcupine, they're technically
Right.
safer for it, right?
That's right.
And I noticed that this type of thing exists still with
Hmm.
spiders and snakes and types of things,
Yep.
because you hear things about spiders and snakes that are just completely not true. They're like,
Right.
yeah, like a snake can leap like 40 feet and just attach to you, and then if it gets you, you're dead. And
And
I
they'll
run,
confidently say it too.
yeah, I'm like, that sounds really crazy. And you kind of grow up in fear of snakes. And we have a lot
Yeah.
of rattlesnakes out here. And I run into
Yeah.
rattlesnakes a lot because I go running um,
Oh,
just out on the trails. And
yeah.
I see them pretty often, especially around this time of year. I've
Wow.
jumped over them on the trails. Like I missed them. I missed them last second. I'm like, oh, and I just jump over it.
Oh,
And but the thing is that something that you can notice every time is if they're just slithering on by,
yeah.
they're not in a striking pose. They're not in a
Yep.
position that they can even be a threat. It's
Right.
if it's like stretched out like that, how is it going to immediately leap on you and bite you,
Right.
you know? So some people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's a rattlesnake." And it's like, "Well, he sees you and he's not
Yeah.
rattling, so he's not feeling threatened. He's not trying to, you know." So,
Yep.
and you kind of have to provoke them to get them to that point.
Yep.
Um, because when I saw that one on the road, and I've seen a bunch of them that just kind of slither on by, there's no rattle because
Right.
they're like, "Hey, you see me, I see you, we respect
We
each
just
other."
we just went to Snakes Down Under here,
Mhm.
and they have a venomous snake show. You might have saw it in my stories where
I might
inland
have,
co-
yeah.
the inland taipan's like the most venomous snake in the world, and then
Oh yeah,
we have
yeah.
the we have the coastal taipan here, and she went through all of that and said, if you have a snake that's cornered, it will give you this sign, this sign, this sign, and this sign before it even strikes. But
Mm,
people are just like, oh, it'll bite you. Oh. And they freak out immediately. She said,
hmm.
but they will actually give you multiple signs before they even bite you. And if you give them the room to get away, they'll take that. And so I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not scared of pythons and constrictors, but I am scared of venomous snakes because there's some crazy ones here.
Hmm.
But just
That
hearing
makes
her say
sense.
that, yeah, I already knew that. And I
Yeah.
knew if I see a snake, I just stay away. But when she said it in that way, like, the one of them, it flattens its body out and then it gives a hiss and then it'll rear up and then it'll bite. She said, but people will be like, oh, it just bit me. And she's like, they just missed all the signs before that, but it did give
Mm,
you signs.
yeah.
And she even said, it doesn't want to have anything to do with a predator as large as ourselves. It just wants to
Hmm.
get away. And same with
Hmm.
spiders. And that's what I told her after the show. I said, I get the same stuff with spiders on my Instagram. I'll hold a spider and they'll say, well, why isn't it biting you? It's like,
Right.
I'm not a threat.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not grabbing it like this or trying to squish it.
Sometimes I
People
wonder
have
like how old these people are that are asking these questions. I'm like, how far did you get through life and not realize this?
a lot of them are scarily old.
Yeah,
And I'm
that's
thinking,
very frightening.
you're way too old to be not knowing this information. But yeah, it does get frustrating. But I try to tell everybody I will find this video. And I saw the video years and years ago, but it was a man, he was an actual arachnologist, and I might have said this to you. Um, he said in the video, 99% of spiders can do you no real harm. It's the 1% that give them all a bad name. But
Yeah.
99% of them can't do diddly to you. They won't even put you in the hospital if they bit you. But there is a select few that most likely most people in the world aren't even, I'm not going to come across a Brazilian wandering spider. It's
Yeah.
just not going to happen for me. A funnel web, sure. But, most people that are living in the States, you've got the brown recluse,
Hmm.
which is probably the black widow,
Yeah.
and even those, I mean, when you look up the number of deaths from all of these spiders since antivenom, it's just not a thing. So you
I
just got to
knew
hope you're not out.
I knew someone once that was like, "Oh, I got bit by a brown recluse like
Yeah.
the other day." And I was like, "Oh, then why are you here? You should be in a
Yeah.
hospital right now." So I'm pretty sure that didn't happen.
It's always a brown recluse. I
Right,
will have
yeah.
people send me pictures and it's a wolf spider.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they'll say, because of the little mark on the back that kind of goes like
Hmm.
this of a wolf, and they'll say, that's a brown recluse. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not even brown.
Hmm.
But oh, yeah. There was a
I
guy that was on Instagram years ago, and he's passed away, but his job on Instagram was to debunk the brown recluse. Everything he did was about brown recluses. And then he did a
What a
lot of
saint.
really good education. Yeah. And just talked about how wrong people are about it and how to look for the different patterns. And yeah, it was really good stuff that he did. And I wish he was still around to kind of push it out there. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's probably one of the most common myths, is that any brown spider is a brown recluse. And here, any brown snake is an eastern brown.
Right.
I just see a snake, I
Yeah.
go, I'm going.
I think I might have seen a brown recluse once in my life.
Yeah.
And I don't even know for sure because at the time I
Yeah.
was I was like 19 or something. But
Yeah.
even then I had like a decent understanding of spiders and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what I did with it. I like caught it under like a cup or something and then I like released it. But that was the only time I've ever seen a spider that looked anything like that. And
Yeah.
so that's if it was a brown recluse, it speaks to how uncommon they are. Also,
Yep.
they're technically not supposed to be in California. And that's the other thing that I hate when people are like, well, they can't possibly be there. We're like, yeah,
Yeah.
but cars and planes exist. Like
Hmm.
they get
Hmm.
on them just like people get
Yep.
on them, and then they end up
Yep.
there.
Yeah. And they're much smaller than us too. So
Yeah.
they can really travel anywhere.
Yeah, it's like there's so many cockroach species that are not supposed to be here that I just find on the street. I'm like, wait a second, you're supposed to be in Asia,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
Yeah, those are in everything. You bring a box from any country, it'll probably have some roach Uthaka in it somewhere.
Hmm.
They love the
So,
box.
do you live coastal?
I do. I live on the Fraser Coast, and the beach is about 800 meters from me. Any part of town you're in, it's about 800 meters at the furthest point, maybe. I mean, you can travel to some of the suburbs, but still.
Hmm.
I work at one of my jobs is at a caravan park. I've worked here for about 6 years, and we'll have people come in. It's 800 meters to the beach. I'm from Indiana. So we had Indiana Beach, which sucked. And then
Right.
nothing else around. We had to travel to the lakes.
Hmm.
And I've had people show up here and they'll say, oh, how far is the beach? And I'll say 800 meters that way. And they'll go, oh, 800 meters. I'm like, where are you from? Where?
Right?
That's a bummer.
Yeah,
Any place in this town is amazing because you can smell the beach. You can sometimes hear the waves at night. Yeah, it's amazing.
that's cool.
Very
Have
lucky.
you seen any saltwater crocodiles?
Only at shows at different places. There's a place called Karana Croc Farm, which I went to a couple times before I realized they're actually a croc farm. So they
Hmm.
raise the crocs for the hides. And then all of the belts and bags and stuff that are in the gift shop are from the crocs that they have farmed at the croc farm.
Interesting. So, do they like eat them at least?
I think they do. Yeah, we
I
do.
hope.
Yeah, croc meat is a thing here. But I just thought, then I was sort of like, oh, I wouldn't. They had some rescues and some big ones that were just, taken from like places where they shouldn't have been around people. And so they've brought them there. So it's kind of a sanctuary, but they also breed them
Hmm.
and then raise them. I don't know when they kill them for the hides, but yeah, I haven't been back since I found that out. We're sitting there eating lunch and I'm looking around at all the tails and the croc pieces around me. And I'm like, oh, hang on. And then I asked, and yeah, I was like, oh gosh. But that's the only place I've ever seen crocs. Um, there is a place actually where my kid's dad lives. Um, called Rockhampton, and there's the Fitzroy River. And if you drive across the bridge over the Fitzroy, it's littered with boats. People live on their boats, and
Hmm.
that water is infested with crocs. Like you wouldn't jump off the boat and go swimming, but they live on it in their boats.
Are they like, is it kind of like homeless people that live on boats?
No, it's hard to explain here in Australia. Not homeless people, but the culture is that where
Like hippies?
having a caravan and living in the back of someone's yard for a while
Mm,
and then buggering off for a few months and then coming back is kind of the culture. So living on a boat is kind of like in coastal areas of the US where you have people that just live on the boats, like maybe some
mm,
single guys or a couple
okay.
or even families. But yeah, it's kind of a common thing. I probably wouldn't go on the Fitzroy if I had a boat, but
Right.
I'd pick someplace else a little less croc infested. But yeah, it's
That's
interesting because
that's one of those things I always think about with Australia, saltwater crocodiles, because I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, they're the biggest crocodile in the world. Like it's one of those things that I always talk about, and I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, but was it a saltwater crocodile? No. It's it's
yeah,
it's another level. And
yeah,
I I was once in touch with a guy because I collect skulls and whatnot. I was in touch
yeah.
with a guy, I guess, that he goes after problem crocodiles in Australia.
Oh wow.
And so he sells the skin and like bone and whatnot from those. But like if
Yeah,
they eat somebody, he has to go find
yeah.
them.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, that's a crazy job.
Yeah. Like, what do you do?
Yeah,
How's that on the old resume?
right? I'm
Yeah,
like, well, what else? I mean, if you're hunting those, I mean, I guess you can do anything.
I know. And that's what I thought when I saw the young woman. She was probably in her 20s, very petite, and she's just holding this inland taipan and with the hook and just standing there talking. I'm like, people think I'm awesome for holding a huntsman. I'm thinking
Right.
huntsman will not even put me in the hospital.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's done same with the croc guy. Like those are the real badasses of the universe there.
Right. So what do you do for work, I guess?
A couple of different things. I have worked at a caravan park for about 6 years, admin, and then I kind of, when the manager goes away, I run the park. But I'm moving out of that because I'm getting I took American Sign Language classes at a deaf school in America. And then once I moved here, I met a lady at McDonald's one day. I hope that mower is not going to be an issue.
I hear something.
There's a mower. Yeah,
Oh, okay. It's
that's
it's
going to
not
be
too bad.
annoying. Okay. But I was at a McDonald's one day and this lady was signing to one of the kids in the playground that was like closed in glass. And I just looked at her and said, "Were you just doing sign language?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, is your son deaf?" And she said, "No, that's my granddaughter, but my son has autism, severe autism, and he's nonverbal. So I've been learning it for him, but it's just so hard to get like an interpreter to work with us that's also a support worker. And you just can't find him and da da da." And I was like, "Oh, that's really too bad." And I thought, okay, this is my sign because this is why I wanted to do it years ago in the States. And so I thought, that's it. I'm going to look for classes. And so I looked, I looked up online and found all of the classes that were available were non-accredited. So, because my goal in the States was to be an interpreter. And then the ones I was finding here were either community classes or they were like in Brisbane, which is like 4 hours from me. So I thought, well, I'm not going to bother with that. I can teach myself the basics. And then, oddly enough, after COVID hit, all of the classes were then offered online because nobody was able to travel. So they started offering all the classes online and the accredited courses. And so, sorry, he's coming right by my place now. And there he is. And so they started offering all the accredited courses online. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is my chance. So now I've taken in Australia, instead of going to university, you have universities, but then you have like sort of, I guess, what's called community colleges, but they call them TAFE here. And so you have certifications and diplomas. So you'll usually start off with a Cert 2, then Cert 3, Cert 4. And then after that, you go to diploma. And then after that, you have your certification. So it'll be for things like hairdressing or like an accounting an accounting like certification of some sort. So you're not going and being like a 4-year degree in something, but it's a certification of something, which will usually fare better for you when you try to go get a job. So with the sign language, you have to have a cert 2, 3, 4, then go get a diploma of Auslan, which is Australian Sign Language, and then you go for your diploma of interpreting, and then you sit the national test, and then you're a qualified interpreter. So I have now finished my cert 2, 3, and 4, and my first diploma starts next month, and that'll go till next year. So I'm currently also working in the deaf community as a support worker. So I essentially take deaf adults that are 65 and over. I take them out on social visits. I take them grocery shopping. I clean houses for them, whatever they need me to do. So I'm doing that at the moment and working with a company called Deaf Connect, which is a huge company here in Australia. And then once I'm an interpreter, I will also work for Deaf Connect, and then I can do things over Zoom. I can do meetings over Zoom. If somebody has like a doctor's appointment in Brisbane and there's no interpreters available, I can go on Zoom and I can be on a laptop at the doctor's office. And yeah, because there's a huge shortage of interpreters here in Australia. I think there's only 300 qualified interpreters in the entire country.
Wow.
Yeah, so real desperate need here to get people qualified to do this. So yeah, it's just a lot of people say they want to learn sign language, but they just don't go and do it. And so it's just,
I don't want to learn it at all. I took a sign language class in college once, and
yeah,
our sign teacher was like literally deaf, and so she
yeah,
had to like sign the whole time. And I was like, this isn't
yeah.
gonna go well for me. Yeah.
And see, that's normal, because hearing people shouldn't be teaching sign.
Hmm.
And you'll find that a lot of people will get up in arms and say there needs to be sign taught in school. Well, the problem is finding enough deaf people that want to do that, because
Mm.
it'd be like me going, hey, I went to Russia for a year and I'm going to go teach Russia and make money from it. Teach
Mm.
Russian and make money from it. It's kind of frowned upon in the deaf community for hearing people to make money teaching sign, because it's not their native language.
It's
So
like
it's
because you're not Russian, is what you're saying.
right. And
Okay.
it's preferred in the deaf community for you to learn from a deaf person. So
Mm.
when I was in America, my teacher was deaf, and I remember going, oh, okay.
I mean, to
Oh
be fair,
crap.
my work ethic back then wasn't great.
Yeah.
I was like, this is hard. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that with violin. I played violin for 6 months, was like, so I'm not going to be able to play in a symphonic orchestra. Forget it.
Right.
So
So what made you want to get into that originally?
and to sign,
Yeah.
I actually went to school with a girl way back in Indiana, and she was the only deaf person at the entire school, and she had one friend. And I would always like give her a wave, like, hi, I'm a nice person. Like, because a lot of people, you
Mm.
know, how, especially back
Yeah,
in
they
the
avoid it.
late 80s, 90s, they just avoid them, just
Hmm.
if you're anything different, they would just, so she didn't have a lot of allies or friends, where now I think it would be different. And so she had her one best friend, but I always would say hi to her and always wave. But I would watch them kind of sign and think, I wish I knew that so I could like be friends with her and sign as well. And she would feel like she had somebody else. And then later on, I just thought, yeah, I really want to get into that, because I want to work in the community, because there's just not enough people that know how to sign and can work where they need help. And then I did 2 years of classes, and then I was in a relationship at the time, and we split up, and then I ended up moving. And so I just sort of stopped, and then it kind of was just on hold for years. And then the lady at McDonald's with her son, as soon as she said, um, we don't have enough interpreters, you just can't. And she had to learn it herself to teach her severely autistic son, who she's already dealing with all of that as a parent. I can't even imagine,
Mm.
a nonverbal wheelchair bound son. And she doesn't even have anybody to kind of give her respite. So I just thought, I'm going to get into this and I'm going to do this, and maybe we'll meet up on down the road. And I actually have her number, and I don't know if she even knows. I haven't spoken to her since I've started my journey. So I
Mm.
should contact her, because I could probably work with her son now, actually.
Mm.
So yeah,
That's cool.
interesting.
That's a um not an easy thing to pursue.
No, it's fun. It's fun though. It's really, it's fulfilling. It's you meet a lot of really great people because most people that get into it, if you're going to go into certain professions, you're probably going to meet a bunch of jerks. But this particular field, almost everybody you meet is in it for the good reasons. They're
Mm.
they're wanting to help, and so you meet a lot of really great people. And I'm really lucky too because my deaf clients that I have are absolute like we're nearly family. It's just I sometimes feel bad even getting paid for caring for them because I'm like, I would do this for you anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
one of my deaf clients, it's the weekend and I see her on Mondays and Wednesdays. And so Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, sorry, I see her husband on Monday and then I see her on Wednesday, Thursday. And so on Thursday, she said, oh, I'll see you next week. And I just said, you message me on the weekend, if you need anything, because I'm thinking they're both elderly. Her husband's had a stroke. She has a really bad back. They live on their own. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So we're at the point now where I'm just like, I don't care if it's through work or not. If you need something on the weekend, just message me and I'll bring it. So it's just, you just meet really good people and just, there's such a need out there for support work, period.
Yeah,
You know,
people to care about other people.
here, yeah, yeah. And I just think, gosh, I hope somebody is there for me when I'm in that spot because
Right.
boy, oh boy, can it go wrong, you know.
Did you
But yeah, I just
see did you see this lady that was faking to be an interpreter over here in the States?
I mean, she didn't, I mean, it was complete gobbledygook, but wow, she really she seemed, if you didn't know any better, she seemed very clear in her signing.
Yeah, she sold it really well.
She did.
Yeah, I don't know how long it took. Like people didn't know about it for like what, 6 months or something like that. She
I
was
think
on a
she did
whole
a couple
tour.
of, yeah, yeah. She did a couple of jobs, I think.
Yeah.
She got hired a couple times or a few times, yeah. It,
That's
the effort that she put in that, if she just put it into classes, she could probably pick it up quite easy.
oh right, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I've seen that Australia had a pretty rough COVID scene. What is your perspective on
Gosh.
that?
Yeah. I'll tell you my perspective because I had all of my friends sending me the stuff like you guys have police outside of your house, you're all on lockdown. I'm in Queensland, I'm in the Fraser Coast.
Hmm.
March 2020, April, I think, we had a 6-week lockdown. The park where I'm living had nobody in it. We had one family that was in a caravan, like a family of 6. They were in a caravan. They were here for the whole month and a half. Um, we all just kind of stayed in our houses for 6 weeks. And then you could go out if you needed to get like groceries or whatever, with a mask. And other than that, I think we've had 2 times just kind of recently that I've had to wear a mask to even go out. And that's here where I'm at. Now, down south, where it gets a lot colder, they did have a lot longer weeks and weeks of lockdowns. Not a single person that I personally know, and I know one that was in the middle of Melbourne with the harsh lockdowns. Not one single person that I know had cops outside of their house, were in any type of camp. I
Hmm.
don't know where that came from. I don't know if there was one place that was like that, but we're just chilling over here. Like it
Yeah,
has been, Queensland didn't have this where I'm at personally. We were very lucky. Like the COVID cases were super low. Nobody was having it. We were all social distancing. Everybody was sanitizing. Like it was just, besides that 6-week period in March, April 2020, it's been almost like normal life.
hmm.
And like I said, down south, there was a lot longer lockdowns because they're much bigger cities, a lot more people and a lot colder temperatures. So the virus is going to have a lot funner of a time going around. But what you're seeing on the news was just, we're like, oh, it's like police state and there's police everywhere and you have to stay. And I don't know. I don't know where that came from. I don't know where the videos are from.
Hmm.
It's crazy. Some of the stuff that people sent me, I was like, I don't know about any of that. I don't know anybody that experienced that.
Yeah, it was like
Personally, I know.
we were hearing about all this martial law type of stuff, and I saw a few videos like just randomly on TikTok and YouTube and
Yeah,
whatnot of people like charging police lines and whatnot. And I was like, that's really wild.
it might have been during that really harsh lockdown when it was like they had a curfew,
Mhm.
but the rest of Australia didn't. It was like more down south, like New South Wales and Victoria, I believe, those two states. But there was certain like curfews at nighttime and stuff for a while. That might have, I don't know, but I'll even ask my friend Audrey and see if she can expand on that a little bit more. But that seemed crazy to me when people sent me videos and
Mm,
information on that. I was like, so to the rest of the world, it seemed like the whole of Australia was going through that. And that
yeah.
is 100% false.
Mm,
100% false. My life virtually didn't change since April 2020 when the that was lifted. We didn't have mask mandates. We didn't even have bad COVID here at all. Then, like probably last year at some point, it hit where I live.
mm.
And then everybody had to wear masks and we social distance. But no, I've had no lockdowns in over 2 years here in Queensland.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So,
here in California has been one of the more strict, I guess, lockdown, quote unquotes, in the United
yeah.
States because our governor is very interesting.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, I actually worked at a COVID lab for the past year,
Oh,
and
wow.
we were processing all the samples and whatnot. We virtually had no work for probably 9 months of the time I was
Wow.
there. Um,
Wow.
there was we had 12-hour shifts. We were working the latter half of the week, and we worked, I would say, on average around 3 hours a day
Yeah.
for a 12-hour
Wow.
shift, and we're just there. It picked up a little bit earlier in the beginning of this year where we just got completely slammed with samples. We were
Yeah.
getting there was so many. It doesn't even matter like what number I say. The
Yeah.
warehouse was basically just full of
Yeah.
boxes and boxes and boxes of samples that we could not get through because we didn't have the staff to do it.
My
And
gosh.
and I wouldn't say that we were understaffed. We had
Mhm.
we had in the team that I was in 30 something people in the
Mhm.
receiving um accessioning type area.
Yep.
And we were all pretty quick workers. We're very efficient team. Um,
Yep.
but we just got flooded in January because
Yeah.
of the what? Which one was that?
Omicron.
Yes,
Omicron.
yeah,
Yeah.
Omicron. So that one kind of like flooded in, and so we got tons and tons of samples, and it was just interesting. I I would also say for the most part that my life virtually didn't change
Yeah.
but that's because I'm a weirdo, not because
Yeah. Same.
I was gonna ask you, is it because you're weird though?
Yeah. It's because
Because
I'm weird and an
I don't,
introvert.
yeah, I don't like go out and party
Yeah.
and do these
Yep.
things. Like I,
Same.
I'm mostly a homebody. I
Yep.
work, I go run.
Yep.
Um, I have my own home gym, so I don't even go to the gym. So
Yeah.
my life is not, it's literally the same for me. And
Yeah.
so all the extrovert people were so
Yeah.
upset. They're like, I'm
Yeah. I was
dying.
like, this is cool.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a second. Now you can order food and you don't have to talk to anybody.
Thank you.
Ordering groceries, they drop it off at their door. They're afraid to talk to you. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
Why did
And
it
it's
take
even
this
good
long?
now. Yeah.
Yeah, they still do it. I'm so glad we're keeping these
Yep.
restrictions of
Yep. I
talking to
love it.
people.
Now I do. We have what's called direct to boot or direct to trunk.
Hmm.
And you can order online and you just hit direct to boot and you show up to the store and you tell them what bay you're in and they bring the trolley or the cart, sorry, the
Hmm.
cart out with all your groceries already bagged and you just put them in your trunk and leave.
You know, I used to do that with Walmart, but it pissed me
I
off
love it. Why?
because I did it like 3 times, and every single time they did something wrong. Like the first
Yeah.
time it was like somebody else's groceries. The
Yeah.
second time I was waiting for like 45 minutes, and I was like, I could be in and out in 15 minutes because
Right. Oh
I
yeah.
know
Now
exactly what
that
I want, and I could just go boop, boop, boop. But I'm gonna try this. drive-by thing.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
took like 45 minutes. I'm like, this isn't a drive-by at all. So I for most of the time that I was working at the lab, I would just order groceries and they'd bring them to my
Yeah.
house, and they wouldn't
Yeah.
even say
I
hi.
have three kids, so going to the grocery store is a huge thing.
Oh
Either with
yeah,
them
yeah.
or without them, it's like, so
Hmm.
pulling up and just chilling on my phone while they bring the trolley out. I'm just like, yeah, cool, I can do that.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I'm one of those people that I would always do my grocery shopping like once a week at an exact time because I meal prep, and then
Yeah.
I would go this part of the store, boop, 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 and go to everywhere I need to go, and then I'm out. I don't want
Yeah.
to spend another second in there longer than I need to.
Same.
But
Worst job on
yeah,
the planet.
right. I worked at Walmart once. It was an
Well,
interesting
not
experience.
working there, just actually having to do it, having to shop.
Yeah. I was there for literally like a week because it was like
Yeah.
I was like I really need a job, but I was like kind of in between jobs. So I was there
Yeah.
for like a week, and I was like mopping a floor because I was doing maintenance, and this very old man came up to me and he was like, "Hey, could you show me where this thing is?" And I was like, "Oh, literally my first day." So what I was
Yeah.
doing was I was pointing over to a kiosk where there was some other
Yeah.
employees that might know more than me. I'm
Yeah.
like, "I can't help you, but there's people over here." And as soon as I do this, he says, "Do you work here? Don't point." And I was like, "Yo, I don't need this job that much. I'm about to hit you with a mop." Like, why is this happening?
Why? What is that?
Right? Yeah, so
That's the thing too,
you
is you work in a business that you have to work in customer service. It's a bad thing for introverts because it's like you
yeah,
just spend half the time going hello, and then they walk out and you're like, I hate you.
yeah. And I'm definitely naturally an introvert, but I've kind of forced myself to be an extrovert because I felt like I had more of an advantage in life
Yeah.
if I was extroverted, because I was like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? You're gonna be you're gonna be nervous about talking to this person, or you're gonna be nervous
Yeah.
about some sort of like social interaction. I'm like,
Yeah.
life's gonna be so much harder if you don't get comfortable with this. And
Yeah.
so I kind of forced myself to become more comfortable with it. And
Yeah.
so I would say that I'm probably kind of like in the middle now, just
Yeah.
because I I took the time to really become more articulate and to talk to people in when
Yeah.
I'm not in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Putting
And
myself.
when I was young, I was super shy. And then I got a little bit better, but through my 20s, like if a bunch of us, like pre-kids and marriage and all that, if we would go out to a bar, I would have to drink to even feel comfortable.
Mm,
And then I just thought, but that's what people do. They go out to bars. That's what people do, right? So I would go. But then as I got older, I realized, oh, hang on, I don't have to do that.
hmm.
And then now I'm at the point where I can easily be extroverted if I want and I need to, but I'm okay with being my introverted self the rest of the
Hmm.
time. And if, and the friends that I have know that I'm like this, and they know that if you don't hear from me for a while, it's not because I hate you. It's just
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
and then my friend will invite me out for something and we'll go and I'll have a great time. And then I'll come home for another 6 months. So yeah, I'm old enough now. I'm just like, nah, I'm okay.
yeah. That's what they say. As you get older, you just don't care anymore. You're
Uh,
just like, eh.
yeah, you're just like, this is
I
who I
feel like
am.
this happened to me a little bit too early. It's not healthy.
But you'll be really good when you're my age. It won't be a big deal at all because you've already worked on
Or
it. But
I'll be like what's his name? Um, get off my lawn type of guy.
oh, yeah.
It's gonna go
Mr.
one.
Mr. What is it in Monster House? There's a movie
I
called.
think I'm thinking about Gran Torino.
Oh, yes. I'll send you a clip from a movie called Monster House. His name's Mr. Niebauer or something, and he does that. Get off my lawn,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah,
everyone's scared of him.
yeah. Who knows? I might end up there one day. Yeah. So, the whole COVID thing, was interesting. There wasn't much of a change for me. Um, and they had a vaccine mandate that went through. When was that? I want to say it was November
Yeah.
for it was any business that was 100 employees or more, I believe
Okay.
was the limitation. And then the bill was challenged by so many people. So um,
It's crazy. Oh,
so then they challenged it, and uh, then it was only medical workers had to get
yeah.
vaccinated. So
Yep.
they were still pushing it, and um I just got like a exemption
Yeah.
because here's the thing. I'm gonna go on a rant. I I have paid really close attention to health and fitness for a long time.
Mm,
Probably looking at a decade now.
yeah.
And there's people that all of a sudden who have never stepped foot in a gym are saying,
Mm,
this is what you have to do to be healthy. And this is what you have
mm,
to do. Like you have to, there's a, the idea that the vaccine is a one size fits all.
right.
And um, I was never, I've never been anti-vax. I've never been against vaccines. And
Yeah.
um, I was like, I just don't think I need it. Because I'm young, I'm healthy, I pay very close attention to my diet. I'm exercising on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Um, I take vitamin D, I take krill oil, I take C, I take I take everything that needs to
Yeah.
be. I eat more vegetables than vegetarians do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I just don't feel like I personally need it.
Yeah.
And um, obviously there's a ton of pushback, and um, them saying, hey, like the whole mandate thing is you you have to do this permanent medical procedure or you can't work.
Right.
You can't have a job, right? And there was times where I even thought about, should I just get vaccinated? And then they were pushing this thing, and I was like, you know what? Just because you're telling me
Mm,
that I can't work because
right.
you want to take my livelihood away because I don't do exactly what you say.
Right.
I was like, no thanks, I'm not gonna do it. But
And
I had to be tested weekly.
oh,
So
okay.
the whole time that I was at the lab for the latter half, I
Yeah.
was getting tested weekly.
Mm,
And but every time I was going there, I was just like, worth it to me.
yeah.
So
The way I look at it is, granted, now we know that vaccinated or not, you can still get it.
yep.
So I'm triple vaxxed. I got it in December. I got it last December. I'm pretty sure I got it in January 2020, although COVID wasn't here yet.
Yeah.
I was sicker than anything in my entire life in January 2020. I've
Wow.
never, my lungs filled up like that
Mm.
overnight, like Friday to Saturday, going into Sunday morning. I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital. I ended up coming out of it in about a week, stayed home, um, but I got COVID in December of last year, tested positive, triple vax. It was honestly like a light cold, didn't have any fevers. My kids have since had it. They did get fevers with it and were very fluey and achy for 2 days, but were rather good. They're vaxxed. But the way I look at it now is it's your choice. Anybody can get it anyway. So if I can bring it into the workplace and be an asymptomatic carrier and
Right.
be vaxxed, or I can get sick with it and bring it in, so can you. So what's the difference if you're vaxxed or not? To me, it's like
Yeah,
I'll get
they
vaxxed to protect myself, but that's your choice whether you want to, because I can still get it anyway. And
mhm.
if you choose not to get it and you get really sick from it, but then that's your choice, and you might not. You might be healthy enough to where your body naturally fights it. So I'm not at all in the very beginning when I thought if I get vaxxed, I'll be safe completely.
Yeah.
And then the anti-vaxxers will be the ones spreading it. Now we know that's not the case. So now
Yeah,
I'm
I
sort
mean
of like,
that's
let them
the
get it if they want it. If they don't, they don't. Yeah,
that was
it
that
doesn't
was the
matter.
sales pitch from the beginning was
Yeah.
get vaccinated and you're safe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of people went down this route.
Yeah.
And I don't, I'm trying to remember. The thing is like, I don't even get like my flu shot normally.
Yeah. I
Um,
had to for work. That was the first time though.
yeah. And I was like, well, that, because whenever I hear about a vaccine, I'm like, like I'll just kind of pass
Mhm.
just for my current place. And a lot of people were like, oh, you're not getting vaccinated for yourself, you're getting vaccinated for other people. And I'm like, okay, if you are asymptomatic and you can spread it, whether or not you have the vaccine or not,
Right.
that's not how it works. I said,
Right.
if anyone can prove to me that me getting the vaccine protects other people, I'll do it. But
Right.
it's not true.
Right.
It's just
Right.
not.
That's
And
exactly right. The only people that would suffer not getting it are the people, presumably, would be the
themselves,
people not getting it.
presumably, yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Right. So yeah, I
And
agree. I don't have any problem.
and I had thought that I had gotten it in 2020, like April.
Mhm.
And I think if I got it, the only thing that happened was like kind of felt lightheaded.
Yeah.
And I haven't felt sick for sure through all of COVID, but
Yeah.
um, I also haven't felt sick in years and years because,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm very
Your lifestyle choices.
yeah, I'm very acute about what's going in my body. I
Mhm.
I can feel if something's off. I'm very everything's kind of in a very particular cycle. And
Right.
so I don't eat anything like that's the thing. They're like, hey, like get this vaccine. I'm like, I don't even eat at McDonald's. Why would I do that? Like I don't even like put things in my body food wise that I don't know exactly what it is.
Right.
Everything that I'm putting in my body, I know exactly what it is.
Have you
And
seen the video of the McDonald's food that they keep for years and it literally never
oh,
changes?
I'm
It does not
sure I've
change.
seen it at some, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I know you're talking about. It doesn't even mold or anything.
Yeah, it just sits there. Just looks
Yeah.
a little wilted, but yeah, it's bizarre.
And I used to eat those I don't know if you've heard of them. They're vegan cookies. There's like two like guys on it. One of them has like curly hair. It's like two
I
brothers or
don't know.
something. It's some type of
Yeah.
vegan cookie. And I used to eat these. I used to eat a lot of things that were like health food, but they're not
Hmm.
really. Now I don't eat anything processed at all. I don't eat processed carbohydrate. I basically eat meat, greens, potato, like um, non-processed carbs. It's
Yeah.
like modified paleo.
You
Um,
need to send me some recipes.
I I eat the same thing a lot. So
Yeah.
because I meal prep and I don't have a problem with it. I
Yeah.
eat a lot of spinach, I eat a lot of broccoli, I eat um like I said, more than a vegetarian does.
Yeah.
And that's because like a lot of vegans and vegetarians will eat these kind of like created things,
Hmm.
cookies or whatever,
Right.
processed carbohydrates. It's
Right.
probably the worst thing that you could be on. And
Right.
in any case, I used to be eating these processed cookies. These I wish I could remember what they're called, but I had opened one and left it out. And at the time, we had a cockroach problem, and the cockroaches did not want it at all. At all, they would not eat it.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, if cockroaches don't want to eat this,
They will
I
literally eat
probably
leather.
shouldn't eat this. Yeah, exactly. So that scares me.
That's bizarre.
So like
Oh,
it,
wow.
there's so many things that I just I don't want anything to do with it. I don't eat
Yeah.
bread. I don't eat bread at all. I
Yeah,
stopped
that's
eating bread like 3 years ago.
I wish I had that kind of like willpower to do that. My
It's
life is
hard.
so busy. I
I
admit I'm
love bread
very
so
lazy.
much.
Yeah. I could not give up cheese. Do you eat cheese? No? No
I
cheese?
do eat cheese. I don't have any
Do
problem
you?
with dairy. I don't have any problem with dairy.
Okay.
This is my perspective, and this is one of those things that is controversial among the health food community. And one of the things that
Yeah.
I've noticed, because I'm kind of obsessed with food,
Yeah.
not I'm not like a foodie at all, but I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with like what it does to you.
Yeah. What
Um,
it's made up of.
I can't. There are a lot of people that would argue that dairy is just not natural for people and that you
Yeah.
shouldn't have it. My perspective is that there's no issue with it, but I do think it matters your ethnicity a little bit because like white Europeans have been drinking milk and keeping goats and cows for a long, long time, where a lot
Yeah.
of like Asian countries, not so much. And
Yeah.
so there are certain people that are going to have more of a proclivity to
Mhm.
lactose
Right.
than I would. And I'm a freak. Like I drink milk casually. Um,
Yeah.
I
My
drink.
son.
I'll go through probably like 3 gallons a week.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not. And sometimes I'll put like cheese on some of my meal preps, like on potato or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've never had any issue. And even if I wasn't burning any calories, I would never gain weight with what I'm eating because
Right.
there's just not enough calories going in.
Yeah.
And I'm not eating anything processed. Um,
Yeah. It's funny. Just the other day, I was thinking about the whole, someone I heard talking, they were saying just don't eat anything that's processed. If
yeah,
it's processed, if it's in a box, don't eat it.
yeah,
I
that's
just thinking about that day before yesterday and thinking, oh, I should really start implementing that a bit more in our lives. But it's just, yeah, you get
I
busy, you get lazy.
also I also have been paying very close attention to microplastics. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Yeah.
So,
Something recently, they were talking about microplastics being in something specific recently.
oh, microplastics are unfortunately in everything.
Yeah.
So, it seems like what basically humanity did was we found out that plastic is super convenient, and then we started
Yeah.
implementing it in processing everything. So,
Wow.
every time you are processing food, it goes through like a plastic tube or, it goes into a plastic container or
Is
it's
that
wrapped
okay?
in plastic. And there's so many different ways that plastic is getting put on food um, and or in food. And there's also
Mhm.
microwaving in plastic containers, Tupperware. I switched everything that I have to glass or metal or cast iron.
Yep.
They say keep plastic out of the kitchen
Yep.
completely. Um,
Huh.
and so I read Dr. Elizabeth Shauna's book. She is
Mhm.
like one of the lead. Gosh, I wish I could recall what title she has, but
Yeah.
she basically studies um, fertility in people.
Okay.
And the thing about microplastics is that they've been drastically affecting fertility in humans and animals.
Wow.
And she said that it's a 1% increase every year of miscarriages in women and testosterone dip in men. And so there's a lot of men that are my age or younger that have low testosterone. And
Wow.
part of this is affected by the male developing in the female body
Mhm.
and how that affects their testosterone levels as an adult, but
Oh,
also
yep, yep.
the microplastics that they're consuming and or um, processed foods, which you get
Wow.
also don't help your testosterone levels.
Yep.
Um, the processed foods with the microplastics that they're packed in and processed through, um, all of those things are drastically affecting testosterone in men and miscarriages
Wow.
in women. Um,
You think,
I
yeah, food has changed a lot over the years, really. Like even
um,
my grandparents had a huge garden in their backyard that they grew everything. And that's just my grandparents. That's not that long ago. And now you can buy complete meals and packages and just stack them in your fridge for the entire week
right, yeah,
and never make a thing.
and why wouldn't you? Because
Mhm.
the thing is like from an untrained person
Mhm.
or uneducated person, you look at that and you're like, well, this is the most convenient thing.
Yeah,
Like, why wouldn't you do it?
right.
Honestly, if there wasn't microplastics and all these rules about what you put in your body, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Just
Yep. Yep.
have a bunch of like pre-made meals and microwave them. It's the easiest thing in the world. It saves you the most time. I mean,
Yep.
that's why I meal prep. It's the most time efficient way that I can find to be healthy. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you either have a personal chef or you're cooking a lot,
That's what
a
I
lot, a lot.
often say. If I
Yeah.
ever get rich, I'm not going to buy some flash house or car. I'm going to buy a nutritionist that's also my chef, and he has to grocery shop for me.
Yeah, that's such a good way of spending money
Yeah.
because it would save you
That's
so,
my only splurge.
yeah, it would save you so much time.
Oh, I'll hire you.
Right? I need to get some more freelance projects anyways. So,
Yeah.
I yeah, the microplastics and the processed food. So
That
the
makes sense. I had no idea what they meant by microplastics. I thought it was like actually in the food, not because it was in the container. Now that makes sense.
I
Yeah.
think with certain processed foods, it probably is in the food.
Yeah.
Um, but it does apply when it is like wrapped or
Right.
kept in plastic. The thing that's really bad is microwaving plastic and then
Yep.
eating off of something like that. And I did that for years because I had
Yeah.
plastic meal prep containers. And so once I found out about that, I was like, okay, time to switch all of those to glass because this isn't this isn't going to go well. Um,
Yep.
so I read her book. I saw her on a few podcasts. She has a lot of good information on it, and she talked about the Pacific garbage patch in the ocean. Are
Yep.
you familiar with that? Yeah, okay.
The
Sometimes
large
I
patches.
sometimes I
Yeah.
run into people that have no
Mhm.
idea that that exists, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna
There
let
are.
me come over to my computer. We're gonna go to look at Google. I'm gonna show you what this is. It's insane. They they were studying, I guess, some of the fish species and bird species that live around that area, and their
Yep.
fertility and miscarriage rate is shooting up because there's plastic all over
Wow.
the area. So not only is it affecting people, but it's causing animals to go extinct.
Yep.
And
Yep.
one of the things that she had mentioned is that people are technically, if you were to judge it how like wildlife, if fish and game would judge it, um, um, people are considered an endangered species because of the fertility rate is so low.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the problem also is when you give birth to a male who has low testosterone and or a female who has been affected by microplastics, then that
Mm.
passes down, I think she said 2, 3 generations.
Oh, wow.
So not good. Very,
No.
very not good. Because there's a lot of people that are affected by this. Um,
Yeah.
once again, because it was convenient, and also because the people who were in charge and governments and the FDA and the people that are looking at health, food safety were not looking out for you.
Yep.
And there were things like sugar companies in the States and what was it? Dairy. There was a lot of scams that were in place where they were getting funded by the government, and the government was like, yeah, like this is healthy.
Yep.
So
I believe it.
I like orange juice, for example. Like there was like what I'm trying to remember the exact, I mean, I don't know what exactly is a lot of information that's kind of come through my head at some point in my life. But there was there was sugar companies at some point like cereals and whatnot, and they were advertised as being good for you, and they were allowed
Yeah.
to do
No,
that.
it's
Um,
crazy.
and so I look at like some of the things that my parents used to do when I was growing up. They're like like margarine, for example, no cholesterol. Like egg yolks are bad for you because they have high
Right.
cholesterol. All of
Right.
that's not true. None of
Right.
that's true. And so it's so crazy how much we were lied to about that.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a big conspiracy theorist when it comes to COVID and whatnot. I'm not like,
Right.
oh, COVID's not real and blah blah blah. But I know people that are, and I'm like, hey, like for those that are conspiracy theorists, okay, just take it easy. And for those that are
Yeah.
not, also understand that you've been lied to a lot.
Yeah.
And there's things that the government has done for generations and generations and notoriously have not been honest with the people. And so you
Yeah.
got to look out for yourself.
I say that a
Um,
lot that I think if we found out what we don't know, we would
oh,
all, our minds would be
Yeah.
I kind of like living in ignorant bliss sometimes because I don't know if
Oh,
I could handle the truth.
I'm the opposite. I look at
Yeah.
the truth with my eyes wide open as often as I
Yeah.
can. Because I don't know. I don't want to ignorance is bliss, but it's also death.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know about something, it could be the reason why you get diabetes or
Right.
whatever, right?
Right.
Um, but I heard something the other day that I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but George Washington's teeth, um, apparently some of his teeth that they made, they're like dentures, were from slaves that he owned.
I
And
just read that
yeah, and
on
I was like,
something. It's
that
probably like
is,
a meme or something.
yeah. So I heard about this and I was like, that is insane. Like I've never heard that in my entire life.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they taught me in school that they were wood. And I was
That's
like,
what I learned. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, that's so strange. And so I had looked into it and they don't they don't know for sure like how it was obtained and there's a lot of misinformation or lack of information on that subject, so we don't really know,
Yeah.
but there is
Yeah.
that potential that something really evil happened.
Yeah.
There's that potential there, and you have to think about, okay, like a lot of people like to idealize these people who like founded America specifically,
Right.
and
Bizarre.
and they're like, well, yeah, that like when they hear information like that, their first thought is to deny it, and like, well, that couldn't be true. But it's
Yeah.
like,
I'm more apt to believe that.
yeah, it's like nobody knows who these guys really were. Nobody
Mhm.
knows who these guys were now, today.
Yeah.
None of
I
us
mean,
were alive.
look at the people that are supporting the statues not coming down.
I mean,
Their
I
mentality. Let's reverse back to like
well, wait a
people who
second though.
actually owned slaves. They probably had worse of an attitude than the people now.
Yeah.
They actually were slave owners,
Oh, for sure.
you know?
I think there's 2 points though. One point that I would say is that you can't necessarily judge people of the past by today's morals. And the
Yeah.
reason why I think that is
Yeah. I see what,
because so many people just do what is culturally acceptable.
mm,
They don't actually stand out. They don't actually fight for quote unquote justice. They fight for justice when it's safe to do so.
yeah.
That's what it actually is.
Yeah.
It's like a Pride Month right now, right? So there's all these companies that come out and they're like, rainbow this or that. You're doing that in Western countries. These same companies do not advertise that in Middle Eastern countries.
That's right.
You're
That's
not
right.
you're not fighting for anything. You're pandering.
Right. Right.
It's a totally different thing.
Great
And
word. Pandering. Exactly.
yeah, and so there's this idea that, oh, we're better than we used to be. And
Right.
I just don't believe that. I just think that, yeah, there was a cultural change. And now that this is acceptable and not that, you're just taking the side that is popular.
Right.
And that's not virtuous
Right.
to do what is common or
Yeah.
popular.
Right.
Um, and so, as far as the statues go, I think I don't necessarily, I don't know if I necessarily think that they should be in the center of the city for everyone to be like, this was this person, you know,
Mm.
maybe. But I do think that it's very important that we remember those people, that we remember our history, that we
Yeah.
remember what wrongs we did, as well
Yeah.
as what rights we did. The
Yeah.
problem is that so many people today see America as super evil or they see America as super good. And the truth is
Right.
neither.
Right.
Every country has things that they have done that were good and things that they have done that were evil.
Yep.
And people need to not have a nationalist mentality about wherever
Mhm.
that they're a part of, wherever that they live, and understand that governments are made up of people and people are flawed. They can
Right.
go this way or that way. And
Yep.
and America's done a lot of good things, but America's done a lot of
Yeah.
bad things too.
Right.
And there's not very many people that can look at it in the middle that way. They look at it
Yeah.
one way or the other.
I think my take on all of it is I don't feel that, I do repost some stuff, um, you know, stating my opinion on a lot of things. I don't think that me personally, I can have much um, influence over the world affairs as it is with anything. So I try to just live my life in a way that it's kind of like if you make a difference in one person's life, like you don't have to be a celebrity and like have 5 million fans if you can make the difference in one person's life. So I'm kind of
Hmm.
in the frame of mind of I know what stands I take on all of that publicly, but personally in my life, as long as I'm being the type of person who would not treat an Indian woman differently because she's Indian or a Black person differently because they're Black, and I'm teaching my children to live the same way, that's the most important impact I can have on this world rather than posting a meme or a video on my Instagram.
Hmm.
I would rather personally do the work in my own life and in my children's life and raise good human beings that don't hate people because of the color of their skin, and that when they see somebody being picked on for that, they're going to stand up for that. So I would rather have my personal impact be where I do the work, because like you said, at that point it's just I post something in my Instagram, it technically could be considered pandering, because really what am I going to do?
Hmm.
I can post Sean King's videos all day long and say I agree with Sean King and I don't believe that this should be happening, but that's all it's doing, it's posting a video.
Yeah.
Unless I'm in my own life doing the work to change at least my children and keep, or not change them, but keep my children in the frame of mind to treat people equally and to do things a certain way, then I think that's where the real work comes in. And unfortunately, you just now with the way social media is, you just got these two sides constantly going and it's nothing but a bunch of noise. Everybody just needs to chill out and do the real work, you know, do
Yeah.
the real work in their own
Are you
lives.
familiar with Jordan Peterson?
Yes, I don't follow him. I've heard of him. I don't really I've seen a few things from him, but I don't follow him closely.
That's kind of one of the things that he mentions. One of his rules is that you you organize your home to the best
Yeah,
of your ability before you criticize the world.
right.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying. And I think
Yeah,
and I think that's exactly how you actually change a society and a culture. It
right.
starts at you affect
Um,
the people around you and how you raise your kids and how you treat your family and your neighbors.
yeah, yeah,
Those things are what make what society is.
yeah,
Not not you being, a social justice warrior on the internet and saying
right,
we need to do this, we need to do that, while
right,
ignoring the people that are directly around you.
right.
It's so I think that culture changes and improves on that personal basis. The
Yeah,
people that you meet in the day to day and the people
because
that you affect in the day to day.
if you think about it, my mother raised me. My dad lived in Detroit. My mother never raised me at all. I never um, heard my mom use the N word or say
Hmm.
anything bad about people of color. It just wasn't talked about. It wasn't a thing. We didn't, my mom never gave me an opinion of people of other color. It was always just if there was somebody around, we were just talking to them and we were friends. And my dad lived in Detroit. So most of the kids I hung out with were African American. And that's just the way I grew up. Not saying, oh, look at me. I'm just saying that the way I was raised made me this way.
Hmm.
And so now I'm raising my children the exact same way. Like these are my views of everybody is equal. Some people can be an asshole, whether they're this color or that color, but you need to judge people based on their character and how they treat you rather than anything else, which is so it just seems to me, I think some of these racist people think they're so smart. And I think, but in the grand scheme of things, to be racist is highly illogical. To hate somebody,
It's the dumbest
it's
perspective to ever
it's so
have.
dumb. And it's like, how can you possibly be racist? It's completely illogical to hate somebody based on literally the color of their skin.
Yeah.
It's so dumb. And the fact that you can stand on it tells me that they're not a very intelligent person. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just think that's so idiotic. But so I feel like I've the baton that my mom passed to me, I'm now passing to my children, and that should continue with their children as well. But then again, it's the same way with, these people that are really racist. They're parents that went to the one black girl that went to school by herself, and you see all the white people behind her screaming. All of those people are now old, and they have children, and
Yeah.
that's being passed down as well.
It's just dumb people
So
raising dumb people.
yeah, and so it's sort of like fighting each other, and I think it's going to continue. Until we get, I don't know. I'm at a loss now with the way the world is. I don't know what to do besides, like we just said, just make sure you at home and your personal print on the world is a good one,
Mm-hmm.
and you're teaching your children that will be here after you to do the same. That's the biggest impact you can have,
Yeah.
is doing it that way.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'll do. I'll just, nothing more I can do, besides posting on Instagram, which to me is kind of fruitless anyway. Because the people that agree with me have probably always agreed with me, and the people that disagree with me aren't going to change because I posted that, period. So it's essentially pandering to people that already agree with me anyway, because the people that don't agree with me, they're not going to change because they go, that Sean King video really made me think. They're only going to find things in it that they disagree with, period. I'll never change them to my side. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because algorithms and things like that have really affected our culture, it would seem.
Yeah.
That if you are right-leaning, then you're going to see mostly right-leaning media and you get more right. And if you're left-leaning, you see mostly left-leaning media and you get more left.
Yep.
And so you have a lot of like polarization from essentially the algorithm is just kind of like trying to market. It's trying to like, hey, we're gonna give you stuff that you like. But the problem with doing that is that people are not very open-minded, and they're like, yeah, I like this because it agrees with me. And they don't really look for an opposing opinion.
Yeah.
They just look for whatever
Agrees.
answer that they're looking for.
Yeah. That's
And
why I love just sticking to my bugs sometimes, and just like, because it gets too much, doesn't it? It's just like, it's everywhere. The world just seems so chaotic. But if you just kind of go like this and go, okay, I'm not even gonna. I try not to get into it too much sometimes, just because it does get a bit overwhelming.
yeah, I definitely have times where I just need to close off.
Yeah.
And I just kind of close off from things. But I'm also I also enjoy it. So I like to have discussions. I like to see how people think. I like to see why people think the way that they think. And so since COVID's been over, I'm kind of bored because like no one wants to argue anymore. So because it was I was pretty regular basis that I would have conversations about it. And speaking of that, my mom got vaccinated, I want to say it was last year, and she had a very bad reaction.
Oh wow.
It went like straight to her heart. And so
Yeah.
now she's still going through visits to try to find how to combat it. I wish I could say exactly what issues that she was having, but it was things that
I've heard about
happened
that.
directly after. Well, there was the myocarditis thing, which was flaring up in a lot of people, and some people like young guys like my age. Soccer players were just collapsing, and partly
I
because
was definitely scared of that when I went in.
yeah, because they were soccer players use so much of their heart on a regular basis just running around. So you can kind of see that connection there. And most of the like myocarditis was such a rare thing before this happened, before the vaccines went out. And the thing that's just so dishonest about the whole thing was that they're not going to mention it, and they're going to deny it. They're going to bury it as far as they can bury it. And it's like, and most of the time I don't even bring up my mom into the conversation because that's not why I didn't do it.
Right.
The My fear of what the vaccine could do had nothing to do with my decision to not do it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just felt like I didn't need it. And
Yeah.
it's so wild how visceral people got about my personal decisions,
Mm.
medical decisions too, which people aren't supposed to know last I checked. But
Right.
all of a sudden it's like public information.
Everybody's in for business.
Yeah. And it was so crazy, some of the perspectives that you would see, but whatever you see on the internet as well, it's hard to give it a lot of weight because there's so many fake accounts, there's so many
Oh,
things
yeah.
things out there that are trying to cause
That are
um
purposely put there.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're just purposely there to cause people to be divisive.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in
Yeah.
being divisive. I'm interested
Yep.
in the truth.
Yeah. That's right. Well said. Well said.
So,
Yep.
well, thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, no worries. So when did you start this? Where are you gonna go with it?
Um, let's see. I've been thinking about doing a podcast for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, but I was always trying to do it like in person. And so
Yeah.
I was like, how am I going to do this? And there was a lot of logistics in that. And so what was it? Like maybe a month ago, a month or two ago, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And
Yeah.
started asking people, and you never know who will want to go for it if you ask them. So
Yeah.
um,
That's true.
I started asking people to do it, and I've gotten people to want to do it, and I was surprised, but also like really thankful for that. And I think the reason for me is, like I said, I'm very interested in people.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very interested in conversations. I'm
Yeah.
interested in, why do you think the way that you think? You know,
Right.
do you know something that I don't know, or do
Yeah.
you not know what I know? Or,
Right.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be ignorant. I want to look at reality with my eyes wide open. And
Yeah.
so if there's something that I can learn from someone else, that's
Yeah.
what I would like to do. Another thing that Jordan Peterson says a lot was, you can learn something from anyone, no matter
Mhm.
like how old or young they are, no matter what their life experience is. They know something that you
Mhm.
don't know.
That's
And
right.
also that people are extremely interesting. And whether or not you can get to the interesting part is the other question.
Yeah.
But there's
That's
always
right.
something interesting about everyone.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. That's an interesting way to go about it too for the podcast, I think, is to get to that part, to
Yeah.
get to the yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm trying to invite people on that I think are interesting and might have kind of a similar wave that I'm on. Um,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people. I mean, from my life experience, I haven't had a lot of actual personal conversations with a lot of people that I relate to.
Mhm.
Um, based on, I would say, like what my hobbies are, like
Right.
biology and insects, and
Yeah.
uh, I was in a metal band for a short period of time.
Wow.
I'm doing taxidermy now, or I'm trying to learn taxidermy now. Um,
Yeah.
I I have like a lot. I have a lot of different things about me, that it's hard to find other people that are interested in those things, and
Yeah.
so I kind of have to like seek that out,
Yeah.
to talk to people that are similar minded in one thing or another. And
Right.
it almost never crosses over, by the way. Like
Yeah.
I haven't met anyone that's like got two or three things in common with me in that way. It's
Yeah.
like that's a real rarity. So
Yeah.
it's usually there's like that one crossover, and then I can really like, oh, like what do you think about this and that? But
Yeah.
there's not normally like someone who is um, in metalcore who also does taxidermy or something like
Yeah.
that. It just doesn't happen. So
I have done taxidermy. I think the heaviest I get is
really,
avenged. Well, because I had my first spider, Cuddles, she passed away.
mhm,
And I had her, she was my very first huntsman ever, and she was huge. And then I wanted to get her taxidermied by somebody, and somebody said they would do it. And then I ended up not doing it, but I still have her. And then my first big Goliath stick insect, huge, fat female.
yeah,
And when she died, I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this.
hmm
So watched a YouTube video of a guy doing it with a tarantula and ended
hmm
up doing it with her. It didn't turn out the greatest, and I never ended up framing her, but it definitely got me thinking like, oh, hang on, I could do this. And then I did it with a male who was much easier because he was much smaller, and I've
hmm
got him framed. But
Spiders, I
yeah,
think, are one of the more difficult ones because their abdomen doesn't
yeah,
stay the right way.
yeah,
So a lot of times you see people stuff it. Um,
yeah,
I did a tarantula maybe a year ago,
yeah.
year or two, and its abdomen is almost completely fake because
What? Yeah.
the abdomen was very dried up, and I had tried to like kind of fill it, but it just ended up tearing and it didn't work out. So
Yeah.
what I did was make a fake one with tissue paper and I painted it, but
Oh wow.
you can't tell at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So um, a lot of the spiders are kind of difficult in that way, but insects are, it's so, it seems so easy once you kind of know what the rules are. If you
Yeah.
want a good guide on pinning insects, Mickey, what's her name? Mickey Alice Watkins or something like that. She has
Yeah.
she has some guides on Etsy, and she's also on
Okay.
Instagram. She's really good at it.
I'll show you this
That's
lady.
how I learned. Oh wow, what is that?
And that's the spider wasp. You remember
Okay,
from the video?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I pinned her very quickly on a pizza box.
hmm That's that video you put was fascinating.
Yeah, so I'll tell you about this. I haven't even posted about it yet, but I've got all the video. So I showed up, this was at my work, and I see the spider wasp and I see the huntsman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is bizarre. You don't usually see a giant wasp and a huntsman just a few inches from each other. And I was like, oh, and it sort of hit me. Oh yeah, that's what's going on. She has bitten this spider. It's now paralyzed. And then so that's when I started filming. So she'd already envenomated it. So I'm watching and I'm videotaping, and she's running around. She kept doing this like, if you see in the video, she's like bzz, 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 and like hooking her
Mm-hmm.
tail in and buzzing and flapping her wings. And I read later that that was to kind of um, startle the spider to see how active it was,
Mm,
and to sort
yeah.
of see if it was still needing to be stung, I guess.
Yeah, she was like, "Are you awake?"
Yeah. And so it was just not even moving. I was like, who's coming in my, that was your friend.
Yeah.
Who's in my house?
Saw it in the beginning of yours, and I was like, "Is someone behind me?"
Yeah. But so I'm filming this. Now I noticed she was missing her back right leg, the bottom half of it. So anyway, long story short, I end up filming this. She drags it all the way up the brick wall and
Mm,
ends up disappearing up in the rafter somewhere. So I'm like, she must have a nest there. She took it there. The next day, it was either the next day or 2 days later, I walked out. There's another huntsman and another wasp. And I yelled at my boss, who's a really good friend of mine. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. Come out here. Come look. I said, there must be a nest somewhere because it's here in the same
mhm,
exact spot again. And I looked, it was the same wasp, only she's like falling over and buzzing and acting very weird. And
mhm,
I'm like, but the spider is moving. So
mm.
the spider that I have, and she's right over here, is the one that I've been caring for and feeding water to and hand feeding.
Oh,
And this was the wasp. I took her into work with me because I was going into work, took her to work with me and kept her on the side of my desk and was trying to feed her water and thinking maybe she got stung by the spider, but she'll come good.
right.
And then she ends up dying on my desk. And I thought of all the people walking into the office and having no idea I have this giant wasp sitting to the side, which is pretty par for the course with me at work. And she ends up passing away there. And then the spider that I had picked up seemed like it had been stung by the wasp as well, and was kind of in the same situation. But she's come good. But now I'm keeping her because I've tried to release her. I was like, she seemed like she's walking better. As soon as I went to put her up to the fence, her front little leg came out and was like, and she was trying to reach for the fence, but it was very shaky and very slow. And I was like, that's it. You're coming home with me. So now I just keep her and I hand feed her. But
That's
so
great.
the wasp got one a couple days before that, and then must have gotten bitten the next time she tried, because there's tons of huntsmen around here. So she must have found a good little
Yeah, see,
stash of them.
that's what I'm talking about when you lucked out about being in Australia.
I tell you.
I've never been able to find a huntsman. Well, there's
Yeah.
not
Oh yeah.
huntsmen here, but I'm saying like I couldn't even find one online. I was like,
Yeah.
because there was at one point where I was trying to get a huntsman as a pet,
There's huntsmen
and
in America.
there are, but at the
Yeah.
time that I was looking, I just
Oh
couldn't find him online anywhere.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, what am I supposed to do? But I didn't look
I
that up.
wish I wish it was legal to send them out, because I would send some babies out. But oh yeah,
Oh
there's
yeah,
no
you
shortage of huntsmen here. That's for
you
sure.
guys can't import or export any wildlife, correct?
Nothing, not
Yeah.
legally. I know it gets done because the giant burrowing cockroach is in America, and that's fully in the hobby. You can't even get in trouble for having it now. It's been there for so long, and one of the big bug breeders there usually has it. So yeah, at some point somebody illegally shipped it, and I get people all the time asking me to do it, and they'll just say, oh, I'm in Germany. A lot of European places, oh, can you send this? I'm like, nope, I'm not about to
Yeah,
get taken for that.
it's similar with stuff that I'm doing with dead animals. Like
Yeah. Oh
someone
yeah.
offered me an owl once, and I'm like, I can't take that at all.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So
You
no.
can't have you can't have any part of an owl because
Oh wow.
it's under the Migratory Bird Act. And so
Okay.
even though it's not a migratory bird and it's least
Yeah.
concern, it's still on the list. I can't do anything.
Right.
So
Right.
there are people that have been like, oh, could you like send me this and that? And I'm like, no.
Yeah. That's the same, because I'm a citizen here now, but I'm still like, I don't want to be that person. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
I'm
it's
doing
not
it
worth
as a
it.
business too. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like break the law and then ruin my
Right.
business.
Right.
That's insane.
Like I've got kids, not that they would throw me in jail or anything, but I don't want to
Mhm.
be, that person that, and honestly, I don't even think a spider would make it all that the way the post is anymore.
Oh my. Yeah.
But yeah.
I've had a
And
lot of
obviously it's been done.
yeah, I've had a lot of bad experiences with shipping, like
Yeah.
getting animals shipped to me. Um, and there was one time the USPS, like they claimed that they knocked on my door for a signature, but they were down at the they were down at the mailboxes, and I knew
Oh,
that it was coming, so I was
yeah.
waiting,
Yeah.
and they put everything in the mailboxes. I checked the mailboxes, and there was nothing. And so I was like, well, that's weird because they should have it because I'm watching the
Mhm.
tracking. They
Yeah.
leave. I follow them all the way to the post office that they're at, and they had sent me a notification that it was failed to deliver because no one signed. And I was like, you didn't ask for a signature. You didn't come to the door
Wow.
at all. And then they just went back to the post office. So I followed them to the post office and I talked to someone there and I was like, hey, one of your drivers has a package of mine that they claimed they'd get a signature for, but they did not. And they eventually were like, oh, well, I don't know what you're talking about because it's a USPS
Right.
worker. And
Right.
they, they went to the truck and sure enough, it was on the truck and I got it. I was like, yeah, cool.
Wow. Yeah, I've had some bugs get shipped to me. One of the local breeders that I love, and they had when the box got to me, it was crushed on a couple of sides, and they had crushed it so bad that it hit the plastic container. It was katydids that I had gotten, and it had crushed the container to the katydids and killed a couple. And it's
Mm.
just like,
Oh, that
and it
reminds me,
says fragile.
you posted a video about Mormon crickets.
The one that I posted was not a Mormon. It was a mole cricket.
No, no, no. You posted a swarming video about Mormon
Oh yeah,
crickets.
that was not mine. That was a friend of mine's cricket.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I have actually a lot of experience with these things.
Really?
Not in their swarming phase. So
Yeah.
I go to this place called Tom's Place. It's up in the Sierra Mountains. I've gone
Okay.
there several years with my dad on fishing trips.
Oh, wow.
And the first few years that I went there, I had heard like a very specific chirping sound.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that? And so I had spent a lot of time looking for them. And I eventually
Yeah.
figured out what the sound was. And it was Mormon crickets,
Mhm.
AKA armored katydids.
Yeah.
And I had caught a few of them and I had brought them back to our cabin. And then they were super loud. So people didn't want to have it in the cabin. So I had to leave them outside. And then a raccoon ate them that night. He just like reached them and ate them. And we found like
It
half
was
of them.
like free snacks.
Yeah, they're in a perfectly non-camouflaged area, and
Yeah.
they like to hide in the sage bush. And so,
Wow.
um, me going up there, it's been like a crusade of mine to find them every
Yeah.
year. And so I have a very trained ear for how they sound now. And
Yeah.
so I can tell how big they are by how they sound and exactly what they are by the sound. And
Wow.
so I spent a lot of time like going out there and trying to find them and catch them. And it's really hard to do because
Yeah.
when they're not swarming, they're
Yeah.
just in bushes randomly.
And
And
you
if you,
get close and you're
yes.
like, oh, and oh no, it's
And if you
and
get
then they'll
close,
stop.
they shut up. Yeah.
Yeah.
They know you're
It's the
there.
same with the mole crickets here.
Exactly. And they also have a very good color for the forest area. So
Yeah.
they blend in really well.
Yeah.
And so I think this past year I went up and I caught a few. I tried to keep them alive, but they just don't do well with the heat where I'm at. It's a lot colder
Oh,
up there.
yeah.
So they don't really last, but I caught a few of them. They like cauliflower. I fed them some cauliflower.
Yeah. Now,
They apparently
do
will
they
eat
bite?
whatever. I
Do they
didn't have
bite?
any experience of them biting.
See, when I posted that mole cricket
Hmm.
and my comments, that thing went crazy. And it was like over 3,000 some comments.
Hmm.
And people like, oh, harmless, whatever. They're not harmless. They bite, they bite, they bite. I'm like, and then this one person, I said, I've held them. They've never bitten. And this person said, I said, well, when did it bite you? And he said, well, I was fishing with them.
Oh
Like, well,
yeah, you're literally putting a hook through their body.
you're trying to
I'd
put
bite
it
you
on a
too.
hook.
Yeah.
And yeah, but, and then, yeah, so that went crazy. And I thought, I've I've never been bitten by any spiders I've kept or caught.
Mm.
I've only been bitten one time, and that was years ago by one that was kind of half dead that I had on my back porch. That was
Mm.
not one that I kept as a pet, but I don't get bitten much. And I just find it strange when people are like, those are crazy,
Yeah,
they bite. And I'm just
I've
like,
kept I've kept a bunch of different scorpions, a bunch of different centipedes. I breed dubia cockroaches. Um,
nice.
I've bred hissing cockroaches of like three different kinds.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I've I've bred a lot of different things. I've had a lot of different things. I've handled all of those things. I've been bitten
Mm,
by a centipede once. That's it.
yeah.
That's
And I
it.
just think that's kind of the norm when you kind of know what you're dealing with, or you just handle them a certain way. I don't know
Yeah,
what it is. And then people, yeah.
you are showing them that respect,
Mm,
that mutual respect,
yeah.
that a lot of people don't respect insects. So,
Yeah.
or
And I think it's
anything.
when they do stuff like fish with them or
Yeah.
land on them and try to grab them and throw them
Hmm.
away. And mole crickets, they'll, as soon as they dig those little paws, it feels
Hmm.
like a bite, and you'll go,
True.
ah. And
Yeah.
I think that's why people think they've been bitten by them and they
Hmm.
haven't.
Yeah. It's
But
like if it actually bit you, it hurt a lot more.
yeah,
I did get bit once by a Jerusalem cricket when I was a kid,
yeah, I've heard that's bad.
but even that's rare.
Yeah,
And though I was like a little kid, so I had it like, cupped in my hands and I was like running with it. So it probably thought it
yeah,
was going to die. So I can see why it would bite me.
yeah. And you
But
got to know how to like spiders to me, snakes. As soon as they turn their head at me, I'm like, what are you thinking? Spiders, I'm just, that's what freaks me out, because years ago I saw a news report and it was you can probably still find the video, and the woman's sitting there, and I think the guy puts the snake around the newscaster's neck, and she's looking at it and goes like this, and then it goes chomp and latches right onto her boob and is just hanging on. And I thought, and she's like looking at it going, hello. And then it just bites her. So I thought, oh, so that's,
Yeah, I have a
I
ball
don't
python.
understand.
And I'm always like I have had a ball python for, I think I've had her for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 or 7. I also had a African bullfrog for a long time.
Oh, cool.
She recently died,
Oh,
unfortunately, but she had a prolapse, and I tried to take it to the vet and whatnot and try to get it fixed, but it just no one knows how to work on African bullfrogs,
right.
so it would have been
Yeah.
better for me to do it, honestly.
Yeah.
The problem with African bullfrogs or frogs in general is that
Mhm.
they're just like anything that moves in front of their mouth, they're gonna go for. So for
Yeah.
me, I never put my hand in front of its mouth for the
Yeah.
frog, because I know it generally just goes for movement. It's an ambush
Right.
predator. So she sees something wiggling in front of her. I mean, what do you expect? So I never put
Right.
my hand in front of her. With my snake, I always try to grab her from above her or behind her,
Mhm.
just because um, I'm just being cautious with
Right.
her. And there is like a certain way that she'll look at you if she's like, "Is that food?" And she doesn't
Right.
necessarily know.
Yeah.
If a ball python ever bites someone, it's for the, I don't want to say ever because that's too
Right.
definitive, but 99.9% of the time, it's probably an accident because they
Right.
thought that you were a rat or something and you were feeding it.
Yeah. And I also read, because we had a small snake for a while, the children's python, that we had a fox terrier. It ended up getting out of its enclosure, and the fox terrier killed it.
Yeah.
But I read that even if you have the smell of the mouse on your hand,
Yeah,
and you held mice or whatever, and then you go to pick it up, even if it
exactly.
smells it on your hand, it'll strike then.
Well,
So
my snake's not that wild. She, for the most part, if I pick her up, she is bald for a second and then she realizes it's me, and then she'll
mm,
start looking around and slithering
yeah.
around. She's never, once you are holding them, they for sure
Mhm.
know that you're not a mouse. But
Yeah.
if your hand has like rat or mouse smell on it and you're in the
Reaching in.
vicinity, then yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you just have to be knowledgeable on these types of things, and people
Mm,
don't want to do that groundwork a lot of the time when they get
I know.
these pets. And
And
then
how many
you,
times I just feel like saying Google it when people ask me questions. I'm like, this is how I learned.
well, one thing that I like to say is that sounds like a Googleable question.
I said that to a guy the other day, easily Googleable.
It's true. I mean, it's crazy because like there is certain information where people will message you and you'll be like, okay, it makes sense for you to ask that because that's hard to find,
Right.
because it
Right.
took me forever to figure that out. But then there's other things that are like, well, that's on the Wikipedia. It's like right on the front page.
Yeah.
So it looks like I think there was something that I was going to say. I'm trying to remember. There was the Mormon crickets. I thought there was something else that you had recently posted that I had thought about. But
The little purse crab, the little
purse
tiny
crab.
purse crab. It was like this big. That
Wow.
went kind of bonkers.
I did not see that, but that sounds fascinating.
It went crazy. My son picked up a shell, just a,
Uh-huh.
your regular old lined shell, picked it up and had a bunch of little like sand and like shell pieces in it. And he was
Hmm.
just holding it. And inside that, because it was big, it would be like holding it in a plate, honestly. It must have just happened to be sitting in the shell in all of the stuff. It was a tiny purse crab, probably about that big.
Hmm.
And it had they have giant looking front arms and then these little tiny back legs. And I was like, that thing's moving. And then I posted it, and oh my gosh, that video went crazy. And I got a lot of the leave nature alone comments on that one. And I'm like, I held it for 2 seconds for a video and put it back in the water. Like, I'm not going to set up a saltwater tank just to keep this crab. I don't have that time.
Yeah, I don't appreciate the people who think they know better for
Yeah.
nature than nature does itself. It's like
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that just say, "Oh, this should be this way." It's like PETA did something. PETA like took a turtle and they put it in the water and it drowned because they thought it was a sea turtle.
Oh my gosh.
Like very uneducated on like animal rescue, and they're like, "Oh, justice for this animal," and they threw it in
Oh
the
my
water.
gosh. Oh my gosh. There's just just too extreme with that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Have
And then
you,
I watch other people's videos. Oh, go ahead.
do you like, do you find yourself as someone who is very interested in insects, also being very interested in crustaceans?
Um, I would have said no previously, but because I now live near a beach, I find so many cool things.
Hmm,
Um, I would just say beach life in general. I don't know if you know what this is. It's called a bristle worm.
no.
I call it an ocean centipede. It is bizarre. Just Google bristle worm after we get off here.
Hmm.
It is the most bizarre thing. And it was washed up on the beach after high tide went out. And it's about this big and has all these little, looks like a ocean millipede or ocean centipede. It is bizarre. And I knew it looked funky enough. I better not touch it. So I scooped up the sand around it and then took it out to the ocean and let it go. But it was just laying there, like on its side, like not even moving when I got it. And then as soon as I went like this, it kind of started wiggling. So it was still alive, and it's not something that burrows like a sea star. So I took it out and put it in the water, and then it kind of went away. But apparently, all the little legs have venom and they sting you. And
Ooh.
yeah, but
Did you get
my
stung?
son, no,
Oh, good.
I scooped up a bunch of sand underneath it. So it was kind of resting on this like
Hmm.
plate of sand. But I
Good
found
move.
starfish and crabs. And my first year here, oddly enough, I found a sea snake.
Hmm.
Had no idea that they were deadly. And yeah, didn't go near it, but yeah, saw it kind of washed up near this hole. I think a crab had actually gotten it and dragged it into the hole
Hmm.
and then hadn't quite made it or something. I don't know if the snake bit it or something, but then the tide went out. So it was sort of the snake kind of halfway down a crab hole. And yeah, it was weird, but it ended up being a sea snake. And those things, I guess, are pretty deadly. But yeah, I find myself more and more and more going to the beach and just like, I don't know anything about this stuff though, like about the
Hmm.
creatures and the animals. And yeah, I have to study a lot on it to figure out, how they work and what things can breathe out of water and what things can't and what things can breathe for a little bit. But it's interesting stuff at the beach, but I'd say I prefer insects and spiders, but yeah, any beach stuff really I find fascinating. But I'm not in a park that has a lot of really amazing things like
Hmm.
um some people in other parts of Australia will post stuff and I'm like, oh, we don't have that here, or I've never seen it anyway. So
I'm
yeah, we're
so
kind of in a cove.
I'm so fascinated with things underwater.
Yeah,
Um, and I would say that same thing almost like I didn't used to. I didn't
yeah.
used to be. I'm not sure like what kind of like triggered it, but
Mm,
sharks have been one of those things that have been super, one of my biggest fears that's been like
yeah,
very intimidating to me. And so I want to go shark cage diving at some point.
same,
And
same.
just to like conquer that fear, but also like it's one of those animals that I have so much respect for, but
Yeah,
also um very I had kind of like a phobia growing up about them, which is so weird
yeah,
because like I'm not even
yeah.
out of the water.
Oh, trust me, I never even gave sharks two thoughts. And then I moved here and I walked to the beach one day and there was this lady and she had a stand-up paddleboard. And I said, oh, that looks really cool. And she said, oh, do you want to give it a try? I was like, sure. So I got
Mm,
on it. And my kid's dad told me at one point that the buoys that are really far out, that they actually put bait on those so that if a shark does come up, it'll go to the bait, get a feed, and then bugger off instead of hanging around people and possibly accidentally biting somebody.
mhm.
So this is in my mind. And so I'm paddling out and I'm like, this is amazing. And I'm looking and looking, and I paddled out far enough to get to the buoy. And I turned around and looked at how far the beach was. And then I could just like hear the Jaws tune
Oh
in my
my
head.
gosh, right?
And then it was like overwhelming, like, like I'm in the middle of the ocean. I'm
You
deep
started
enough to where
freaking out.
a
Yeah.
shark could come, and I just paddled right back. But that's what you get when you're from Indiana, I guess. It's probably as stupid as someone having a fear of coming to Australia and a spider's going to bite them, but
Yeah.
I'm very uneducated with the ocean itself.
I started reading a book about shark behavior.
Mhm.
It's a by a marine bio, I believe she's a marine biologist, Ocean Ramsey. And
Mhm.
so she's worked a lot with sharks up front, and
Yeah.
that's like her passion.
Wow.
And I've always understood that, especially like great whites, it like every time they've attacked a person, it's almost always an accident.
Yeah.
And then they're like, this doesn't taste great, and then they dip. Because the
Yeah.
thing is if they actually liked people,
They would
you
just eat
would,
them.
yeah,
Yep.
they just eat you. There wouldn't
Yeah.
be shark surviving stories.
Right.
No way.
They
So
take a bite and they realize it's what it is, and
yes,
they eat
yeah,
it.
you think they just, oh, you outswam it after you lost your arm?
Yeah.
No,
True.
that's not happening.
If it wanted to eat you, it would. Crocs,
Yeah.
no problem.
So crustaceans I kind of got into because what I had realized was I don't really want to be, because I had thought about going into school to go for entomology and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't really want to be narrowly pushed into entomology, because what I'm
Mm.
actually really fascinated with a lot of times is scorpions, centipedes, things that are technically not
Yeah.
insects. And
Yeah.
so I started kind of going by, well, I want to study arthropods. And then I
Mm.
was like, well, what are arthropods? And then you look at, oh, well, all these crustaceans are also arthropods. And I'm like, they don't seem as interesting to me. But then over time, I'm like, wow, these things are fascinating.
Mhm.
They're literally just like ocean bugs.
Yeah.
And and so I started, getting more interested in that. And I started seeing more recently, I started seeing crustacean taxidermy, which I hadn't
Ah,
seen previously. And I'm like, wow, is, it's so cool to look at. Like
yeah.
when you see these really big crabs that are like mounted,
Yeah. I'm
it's
excited.
not like any other taxidermy.
I'm excited every time I find a bigger and bigger crab. And
Mhm.
I know I'm probably going to get pinched at some point, but I'm still willing to risk it to just hold it.
Yeah, they're a
And my
little bit
son,
they're a little bit more willing to hurt you than bugs are.
yeah. But still, I tell everybody I've given birth. I'll be okay.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
be
true.
okay.
Yeah.
Because people say, "Oh, watch out on the mole cricket. Oh, that thing will bite you hard. Watch out." I'm like,
What are you
I've
gonna do?
given
You're
birth.
gonna live your life just like not picking up things because, oh no,
Yeah,
this might happen.
yeah. And I'll pick it up very carefully anyway and hope that it
That's
doesn't.
not
But
great
still,
advice, by the way.
yeah,
But I'm just saying,
yeah.
live your life to the fullest.
That's right. Every day.
Yeah, the ocean is so scary to me, but so fascinating. And I hate the beach. Like I never want to go to the beach. I don't want to be near
I don't.
sand. It's a
Yeah,
thing. It's a thing for me. No, thank you. Every
I
time I've
love
gone to
the
the
beach.
beach, I get sand in like every crevice that I have.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then I don't want to, and it's a poor experience. But then
yeah,
when I think about the ocean itself, or like scuba diving or something like that, I'm so fascinated with it.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
so
you'd love it here
fascinating.
where I'm at. We've got Fraser Island, Great Barrier Reef is
Mm,
on this coast. But yeah, it's you can go snorkeling at Fraser Island, and see fish and eels and turtles. And yeah,
mhm.
it's pretty cool. Just snorkeling, but you can definitely go scuba diving. It's a good spot in the world to go scuba diving.
I've never gone scuba diving, and I say that it's fascinating to me, but yeah, I've never done it.
Yeah. I actually worked for when I was 19, I worked for a scuba diving company called Icolite,
Hmm.
and I built underwater flashlights and then for scuba diving. And then I also did the repairs for a while. So I would get, strangely enough, I would get a repair sent back to us that was a flooded underwater scuba light from Australia. And I would have to repair it and look at the seals, the X O-rings and X rings and all of that. And we had a dunk tank that would go down to 300 feet.
Mhm.
And I would have to change the seals out and put it in the dunk tank and take it down to 300 feet, see if it still leaked, and change all the battery connectors, and just did that. I was 19 years old. No idea. But I remember getting a
That's way
flashlight.
fun. That's way funner than
Yeah.
most 19-year-olds jobs.
Yeah. And I remember
I
getting a
was like at
flashlight in the,
McDonald's when I was 19.
yeah. I got into it because my stepdad's family all worked there. But I remember opening up the one from Australia, and there was Australian ocean water in it. And I was just thinking, wow, this is all the way in Australia, and had no idea one day I'd be there.
I would have been thinking the same thing. Australia is so fascinating to me. One of the things that I
Yeah.
always told people, I was like, did you know you can go to Australia and hunt cats?
Feral
And
cats are
they're like, no, that's not a thing. I'm like, no, it's a thing. And I'm not a cat person. Like growing up, I was never a cat person. So I was like,
Yeah.
this is great. This is a great idea. Like,
Well,
and they're killing off a lot of invasive species, correct?
oh yeah. And you know what? Another craziest thing, not about cats, but at the Indianapolis Zoo, I remember years and years and years ago, there was a kangaroo exhibit, and it said red kangaroo. This species of kangaroo is near extinction in Australia. And when you come here, they have certain times of the year where they have culls, and they send people out specifically to kill the kangaroos, because one of those long trains, the semi trucks with like 3 trailers on it that travel through the middle of the outback and stuff, they'll hit mobs of thousands of
Yeah.
kangaroos,
Yeah.
thousands of them. And so certain times a year, they send people out to actually kill as many kangaroos as they can. Same with the feral pig here.
Yeah.
So
I'm uh um so familiar with that. It's unhealthy.
yeah, my workmate, she's a woman. She goes out and she hunts feral pigs. My kid's dad, he hunts
Nice.
feral pigs, but he hunts it with a knife. He doesn't go with a gun.
I've
The
seen
whole
people
thing.
do that. I'm like, that's an interesting.
Yeah, you've
It's
got
a,
the dogs to hang on to it for you, but still,
right.
just
I'm like, I understand that you're trying to like, I guess, make it as manly as possible
yeah,
without technically risking too much because the dogs are
yeah,
holding on to it.
yeah,
But it's just so weird to do. Like,
yeah,
it's just such an inhumane way to hunt something. I
yeah.
get that it's a pig, but come on.
I was accidentally on we lived out on a property when the girls were little. It was 180,000 acre property, and the adjoining property was 200,000 acres. The same man owned them both. We had a helicopter that would land on tennis courts when they would fly food in and stuff. It was in the middle of nowhere. And the girls were little. They were in the truck with us in the ute, and he had the dogs on the back, and we're just driving out to check fences. And the dogs go crazy, jump off the truck. He puts the car in park and says, there's a pig, jumps out, grabs his knife, and runs off into the bush. And I'm just sitting there with these 2 babies, like, okay, what's going on here? And then you just see a pig go by, and then his 2 dogs go by, and then him go by. And then you just hear this god awful screaming of the pig. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it just goes and stops, obviously,
Yeah.
when he stuck the pig. And I was like, that is the most horrific thing I've ever been a part of. Don't ever do that again when I'm here. And luckily the girls were little, so they had no idea
Yeah.
what was
Yeah.
going on. I thought, oh God, why would you ever want to do that? A knife would have been much better, but yet, or a
A
gun, I mean,
younger version of me would have thought that that was awesome to do,
yeah.
but
Oh,
now I'm like, eh.
yeah,
I
no, it was
I think
horrible
that
listening.
I think that if you're gonna hunt, no matter what you're gonna hunt with, you need to be skilled enough to hit that thing in the heart and for it to go down as fast as possible.
Well,
Um,
yeah. And he did that part. It was the dogs hanging on it, which
yeah,
caused it to squeal,
yeah,
which
yeah,
was horrible to listen to. It was like a horror movie. It
yeah,
was, yeah. And really, honestly, if you didn't have the dogs and you just had a gun, you could just shoot it and that would be over. The dogs wouldn't even have to hang on to it. if you
Yeah,
had a,
that is the safest way to do it, is to shoot it with a rifle and
yeah,
shoot it in the heart, and it's gone. It's over.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
the most merciful death any wild animal will ever get.
yeah.
That's the other
And
thing that people don't get.
I understand why they do it because they do damage a lot of crops out here, and there's a lot of sugarcane
Hmm.
fields, and
Hmm.
they'll just hide in the middle of them and dig everything up. And I do
Yeah.
get why they do it. But yeah, it was horrifying to hear, but I understand why they have to kill them, but still. It
Yeah, those
was
things need to
bizarre.
happen. Um, the kangaroos too. I assume that you know what a thylacine is.
Nope. Thylacine?
Am I saying that right? Gosh, I
No
hope
idea.
so.
Is it an animal?
Uh, it's a predatorial marsupial that went extinct in Australia that they deemed to be the original predator of kangaroos.
Oh, no, I've never heard of it.
So it's very interesting looking. There's a few films that you can find, black and white, on these
Okay.
guys, that they had a few of them in a zoo back in the day.
Oh, wow.
And they believe that this was the main predator of the kangaroo. And now there's no main predator of kangaroos, so they're everywhere. And
Yep.
so the ecosystem in Australia is so out of whack.
Yep.
Um, and that's why they have to do these culls. There's no predator. There's no natural predator.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, you
Yes.
should look at the thylacine. It's a bizarre looking animal. Nothing looks like it.
Yeah,
It's
look
so
it
it's
up.
so
I've never
it's
heard
so
of that.
sad. It's so sad to me when I hear about an animal that went extinct, especially when it's more recent.
Yeah.
Um, it's like it's such a loss.
Hmm.
It's
It was
such a loss to me.
obviously here for a reason
Yeah.
and the natural order of things. Yeah.
I went to, do you know about the La Brea tar pits?
Heard of them.
They're a tar pit out here in LA, and a lot of animals from the Pleistocene era um,
Yeah.
died in the tar pit there.
Yeah.
So they pulled them out. They've got Smilodon, saber-toothed tigers, um, mammoths, mastodons, a whole bunch of
Wow.
stuff that they pull out of there. And
Wow.
one of the animals um, that they have like remodel articulations of is the giant ground sloth. Um, I don't know how familiar you are with that. It's a massive sloth, but it went extinct um, around that era. And
Wow.
I was there with my mom, and I pointed at it, and I was like, "This is the one that I'm pissed off the most about." I was
Yeah.
like, I was like, the giant ground sloth would be so cool to see
Yeah. How big is
alive.
it? Or was it?
It's massive. It's probably big. It's probably bigger and heavier than a grizzly bear.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
Oh, wow.
big animal. And yeah, and the saber tooth as well. The American, are you familiar with the American lion? There used to be a lion in America.
No.
Yeah. I know all about
I'm gonna
these
have to Google
animals.
all of this stuff afterward.
There's an American lion that used to be here in California. Not a mountain lion,
I
like
was gonna
a
say I know the mountain
yeah.
lion.
Um, there's the woolly mammoth, the mastodon, a whole bunch of different types of elephant-looking
Wow.
animals. There's I believe there's two types of sloth, giant sloth that went extinct. Um, a lot of dire wolves. Dire wolves
Yep.
are an extinct species. They have a wall there of dire wolf skulls.
Wow.
The massive wall of
That's
all
why
the
I told my
skulls they
kids
pulled
the
out.
one thing I miss from America is the museums. So, I mean, where I've lived has always been either really remote or
Mm.
really small towns.
Hmm.
And we don't have nothing like I'm from Indianapolis, so it's huge. And this town is so small. You have
Mm.
one very, 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 very tiny, like 3 building historical society, which is not really
Yeah.
anything.
So
But the bigger cities,
nothing,
obviously,
no like natural history.
probably in Brisbane or Sydney or something
Mm.
like that. But those are Brisbane's 4.5 hours from me, and Sydney's like 17 hours. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've always lived in places where it's just a bit smaller of a town and there's not really a big, large, thriving city. It's
Hmm.
always been smaller, kind of beachy
I
town.
actually grew up in a super small town.
Yeah.
I live kind of closer to LA now, but I grew up in a small town my whole life till I was like 20.
Oh, wow.
I moved out. Yeah.
And so you live in LA?
I live on the outskirts of LA in the valley.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is
LA
that a
is
bit of
like
a,
LA is like 40 minutes from here.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
My aunt and uncle used to live in Camarillo years and years ago.
Oh, okay.
And then we went and saw the Walk of Fame and all the normal touristy stuff, touristy
I've
things and
never
everything.
I've never gone there because like I just don't care.
Well, I was 16 and the only star I took a picture of was Danny Kaye. Do you know who Danny Kaye is?
No idea.
He's an old 40s actor. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
musicals. So yeah,
Okay,
I
okay.
love old 40s movies. So, but Danny Kaye is a big star back in the day. So I found his star and took a picture of it.
Mm, not Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No. Maybe Kindergarten Cop, but that's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
One of the good ones.
I was never interested in celebrities or pop culture or anything like
Yeah,
that.
no.
I
I worked at a couple of big radio stations, just found that the celebrities that came through, I just feel like it's bizarre that we treat other human beings as if they're gods
hmm
just because they have a cool job. I find
mm,
it really bizarre.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because they're in movies and then people see them as a character. They
Yeah.
see them as like a hero of some kind, but it's not
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a weird
Like
thing,
I
but
would rather meet Jane Goodall.
yeah, it's a psychology thing because you see
Yeah.
them act out heroic things and in your mind you're like that's that person,
Yeah.
but it's not.
And they're just
It's
like
a,
this. Yeah.
it's weird. Um, what was I gonna say? Something about, oh, there's a natural history museum out here and it's kind of rough, sad to see because
Oh,
there's a lot of really old damaged taxidermy and you can tell that the place just doesn't get funding.
wow.
That was actually the first time I saw orb weavers in real life. They had a
Wow.
there was an insect it was like a traveling group
Mm.
and they had brought a bunch of orb weavers through and spiders and stuff and it was like a secondary exhibit and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, if you want to see this, we're going to be here at the Natural History Man for the museum for like the next month. So it was
Wow.
something that we got to see like kind of extra, but um the actual museum itself, it was just it was sad to see a lot of the stuff I remember. And I went there
Yeah.
maybe 4 years ago. I remember seeing some centipedes in there. Their the environment they were kept in was just they weren't gonna make it for
Oh,
sure.
no.
Yeah.
I find that a lot even here. We'll have the sporadic pet store will suddenly have stick insects
Mm,
and the leaves are drier than cotton
yeah.
and they've got to be fresh daily, if not every couple of days, especially in the summer.
Yeah.
And the leaves are dry and the enclosure's horrible. And I'm just like, tarantulas and have stuff like that. I had a friend buy the one tarantula that I have. Um, she bought it from a pet store and sent it to me, but it was in a small container. It was literally this big, and it was in a
Mm,
small container with some moss and some other stuff. Perfect container for a tarantula spiderling, like perfect. But um, she thought it was like, why do they have that spider in such a tiny enclosure? But it had tons of substrate and moss and everything. But
hmm
you know how
Yeah.
tarantulas have to be kept in something. So she just panicked and sent it to me. And I said, actually, that's not bad for a pet store. It's actually a pretty good enclosure, but now it's in a huge one. But
Yeah.
yeah, but a lot of
There's
times the tarantulas, they're just, they'll have different types of tarantulas in the wrong types of settings. And it's just, I'm like, do you even Google what to do?
hmm
Try to get it right. But
Yeah, pet stores are uh s- um so well known for having no information and very poor quality to care for the animals.
yeah,
Well, not I wouldn't say pet stores. I would say the name brand main places like Petco, PetSmart, and these places
yeah,
that are um, like commercial. Um,
yeah. Same here.
all the
Same here.
employees are just they're no different than a McDonald's employee. They don't
And they
know
all
anything
they all
about the animals.
and they all pretend to know everything about the animals.
That's rough. Yeah. I've had so many, you know, uh I have a confession. I went to a pet store and I needed food for my snake. So I bought a mouse at a PetSmart, and
Yeah,
they have a rule there that they don't sell the mice as feeders, which
yeah,
my perspective is if you sell snakes, then I'm also going to buy food from you, or you should at least sell mice for that purpose. And
right.
otherwise you're a hypocrite
That's
and I'm going
funny.
to do it anyways. So so yeah, the and because of, I think it's partly because of the way that I look, they're like,
Mm.
why is this guy buying a mouse? So the guy asked me, he's like, oh, we can't sell those to you as feeders. You know that, right? I'm like, oh, no, it's not a feeder. And then I get to the cashier and they're like, oh, the um I don't remember what they said. They asked me, oh, cool, you're getting a mouse or whatever. And I was like, yeah, it's a gift. And which is true. And they're like, oh, well, you can't buy that to feeders. And I'm like, what are you accusing me of something? What the heck? What, I can't buy a mouse for like my sister or something? You guys are
Yeah,
wild.
or they're a pet. I mean, it
Yeah,
technically was. It technically
making
was a gift.
making assumptions about what I'm doing. I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, I guess I looked guilty.
You don't look like a mouse keeper.
Yeah. So I only did that like once, and then I found a
That's
place
fun.
that was actually selling
Yeah,
live rats.
that's kind of dumb to sell snakes, but not the food. Like,
Yeah,
we'll sell you the animal, but we won't sell you what you need to keep it alive.
yeah. It's so ignorant.
Actually,
It's insane.
I had a longtime follower chick. She unfollowed me. And that's why I put a warning on the cricket feeding now, is because she was like, you seem to care so much about insects, yet you'll feed a live cricket to your spider. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, I get that a lot. I'm like,
It's the
well, I have
circle of life. You
that's what I
know,
said. I usually
um,
hashtag it nature.
if any insect deserves to get eaten, it's a cricket. That's
My
my
son would
perspective.
agree. My son would agree with you.
Crickets are so horrible to each other. Have you seen what they do? I've bred crickets for a while. I
Oh,
kept crickets for a
they're
while.
brutal.
That's why I switched to cockroaches, because they're so
I
cannibalistic, and they eat
They
each
are.
other's babies. Infanticide.
They'll eat
It's
anything.
yeah,
They'll literally eat anything.
it's not good. So
No.
I 100% I started avoiding them. This is actually interesting, which not a lot of people know. There's a common house cricket that is very it's like the main feeder of like Petco, PetSmart, and those main brand um,
Yeah.
um, pet companies. They'll sell a very specific species called I think it's called a house cricket. It's those
Probably.
like yellow
Like,
crickets, right?
yeah.
Um, I had read on a forum somewhere. What forum was it? I was using. Have you heard of arachnoboards?
Yeah.
That
Every once in a while I stumble
there
across
you
an
go.
answer
You're
on
the only
those.
person I've ever met in my entire life that knows what that is.
Yeah.
So, um, so arachnoboards. I think I was talking to somebody on there, and they were mentioning that there's a specific um, disease that goes through these house crickets, and when they die, they will um, be able to pass that disease on if they're consumed. And
Oh.
so these crickets will just be dead within a week if you keep them, because they more than likely one of them has it or multiple of them have this disease. They die.
Mhm.
They cannibalize
Yeah.
it. Those ones die. They get cannibalized. Those ones die. So they only last for about that much time. So
Right.
what they were saying was, to try to combat it, was you either watch every single time a cricket dies and pull it as soon as you can, which good luck.
Yeah.
Or another thing that you can do is put charcoal in their diet. So I
Oh.
started mixing charcoal in with like dog food, like crude
Mhm.
proteins, I usually use dog food and fish food, like grinded up for my
Yep.
cockroaches and stuff. And I was mixing in charcoal, and they said the charcoal can sometimes help negate the disease in some way. Maybe it makes their immune system stronger or something like that.
Yep.
I tried it for a little while and it helped, but I wasn't able to get past it. So that
Yeah.
was the main reason why I moved to cockroaches.
Oh, I've tried to use cockroaches in the past, but they're so fast for my huntsman.
Really?
And huntsmen are fast, but they just
Which ones were you using? Do you know?
woodies. They're called woodies.
Oh, okay. I have no idea what that
Yeah,
is.
but
I
they're
use
kind of like you can find woodies outside here,
mhm,
but yeah, they're so fast, and then they'll just continuously hide under this tiniest little
mhm,
piece of whatever, and then
yeah.
they never get fed. So I just thought, stuff it. I'm just gonna feed them
Yeah.
because they can do the
That's the
hiding
problem.
season.
I guess that's part of the problem with cockroaches is that they're a little bit too smart.
Yeah, they
So
are.
I've had, or here's a good word, thermotactic. Do you know
Yeah,
what that is?
no.
Thermota Thermotactic means that you feel safe when you're in like a tight space.
Oh,
So
huntsmen do that as
so
well.
cockroaches are thermotactic. So
Yep, that
they
makes
like
sense.
to just any little crevice that they can get in, they'll just shove themselves in there because they feel secure.
Yep,
So I can't remember what the term is for the opposite of that. There are some
yep,
animals where it's like, they feel claustrophobic if there's
yeah,
things touching them.
yep.
Cats are like that. They want to
Mhm.
be open. They want to see everything around them. They don't want to be like in a tight spot because they feel
Right,
like they're going to die.
right.
So cockroach is the opposite. They want to be in a tight spot. So that's one of the issues with trying to feed your insects cockroaches, that they're going to just try to find a little tight spot to hide in. And so a lot of
Yeah,
times I'll just use, I'll try to feed them by hand or with tweezers or
yeah,
whatever to make sure that they eat them, because
yeah.
otherwise they're
Yeah,
just going to
true.
find a
True.
crevice to hide in, and then that's it. Crickets are fine though,
Yeah.
because crickets will just wander aimlessly until they get caught.
Yeah. I like when they do the little standoff and the spiders and the cricket just sort of, oh,
Yeah, it just
hang
touches it.
on,
Yeah.
that's something. And then they both just freeze.
Yeah.
And I'm like, one more step and you're,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a good idea to hand feed. This girl I hand feed because she seems to jump to like she wants to get it,
Mm,
but until I grab it with the tweezers and kind of dangle it right here, and then she'll fang it. But
mm.
she doesn't actually catch on her own. But I mostly free feed my other spiders. I've never, how people will say throw food in there, but then take out what they don't eat. I don't do that.
Yeah,
I've
no,
never done that.
no.
I've always been like, here's some food. If it's left over, you'll eat it later. And they
Yeah,
always do.
I never have removed anything. I think
No,
the main issue with that is more of like a humidity, like mold growing thing. But if you
right,
have like springtails or something like that, you're not going to really have an issue. They're going to eat it. So,
right, right.
um, what was I going to say? Oh, how much of an improvement do you think that your spider has had since?
She's alive. I would just the other day I was thinking I feel bad because she definitely wouldn't make it outside. She'd probably go and just sit in an area until ants came and
Yeah.
just overwhelmed her and killed her. Or something else, but probably ants first. But
Yeah.
she can move, she can walk. I'll try to get a video because I'm making videos along the way because I'm going to end up putting it all into one big video with the second finding when I found the wasp that had been bitten and all of that. So I've been taking pictures of her along the way, but she's not fast. She doesn't move a lot. I'll take her out and kind of just rest her here on my chest while
Hmm.
I'm working on the computer or something, but she'll barely move. She kind of, when she holds up a leg, it's kind of like this. And then I'll put my hand there and she'll just kind of rest it. But she just, yeah, she's not dead, but I would liken it to be like if somebody were in an accident and they were somewhat paralyzed, like you'd have to continuously care for them. If I
Hmm.
didn't feed her, she'd probably die.
Do you think that she'll get
Because
better?
I don't. Not at this point. I think however much she got stung must have permanently affected her
Yeah.
because she's never regained any type of,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
That's rough.
but it's all right. I'll take care of the old girl till she passes away and then
Yeah.
get sad about it.
I had done surgery on a few centipedes that got stuck in their
Yeah.
molt.
Oh, I
And
hate that.
so I had like an
Killers.
X-Acto knife, and I put them to sleep. I don't know if you know about that. You can knock
No,
out a centipede with water,
really?
and that's how you sex them. I learned
Oh,
this
I
from
didn't know.
Michael because he's a wild person, like I said. Um, yeah, so he would sex them, and what he would do is he would put them in a jar of water for about, gosh, I don't remember the exact time. It might be a minute, it might be 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It's around there. And he said
Yeah.
you want, I think he recently was saying cold water is better.
Yeah.
Um, they'll pass out. And
Oh,
once they're out, he said you have about a 30-minute window. You push on the second to last segment of their body, their genitalia will pop out. Then take a macro photo of it. That's how you're going to be able to tell the difference between male and female,
wow.
which is barely different,
Wow.
by the way. The genitalia is
Wow.
barely different looking. And like the male has two little tiny prongs on the genitalia. It's
Yeah.
super close
Yeah.
to the female. Um, then you just put them back in their closure. They'll wake up around 30 minutes and they're totally back to normal. He said that he has never seen any behavioral difference from doing it. So he thinks that it's a safe method. So I trust
Yeah.
his
I
opinion
think
on that.
what that seems to be is the spiracles or the breathing holes on them when when an insect falls into a pool.
Mhm.
They will continue to stay alive, but all the breathing holes will fill up. And I thought I was Jesus for the longest time because I would pull a big old cricket out of or grasshopper out of the pool up in the rainforest.
Mhm.
They would be dead.
Yeah,
And I hold it. And eventually the water, once you take it out of the water comes out of the breathing holes. That's a safeguard for many insects.
that's
So
wild.
yeah, and
I
then the
I've
water comes
I've
out. I
like
just didn't
kind
know
of
centipede.
I've
I'm
kind of
assuming
known
centipede.
that, but not known
Yeah,
that. It's like I knew that I could take a insect out of water and then it
yeah,
eventually be okay because I've experienced this multiple times, but I
yep.
didn't understand it in that way.
I'll bet you. I'm assuming centipedes have the same
More than
way of
likely.
breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so maybe that's just them sort of like if you left it for longer, obviously they would probably drown. But
Hmm.
that's their little safety switch on a lot of insects is that's what saves them in order to sometimes get them out of danger.
Yeah,
But
so I had done that to do the surgery for
interesting.
this centipede because he was like halfway out of his molt. And I got to him just too late because his legs had already kind of hardened in a poor way.
Oh,
And
yeah,
he just wasn't able to really feed himself in the way that
yeah,
he should. He lived like I don't know, a week or
yeah,
two after that point, and he wasn't fully grown. And
yeah,
so it was rough, but I was able to like initially get him out and
yeah.
uh,
That's the worst. Every time I see anything molting, I always feel like it's going wrong. I
yeah,
always feel like I need to help. I
yeah,
always feel like that doesn't look good.
yeah.
I'm happy when I'm happy to have caught it sometimes, but sometimes I just wish I hadn't because I always panic when I see it. It always looks like it's going badly.
Yeah, it's so stressful. I like to just like look and they're like, "Oh, you're bigger. That's good."
Yeah.
I
Yay.
had I had a scorpion that recently died getting stuck in its molt.
Oh.
And but I kept it and I pinned it and framed it halfway through the process.
Oh.
So it's
Oh
actually
wow.
it's a really cool piece because I don't think I've seen anyone pin anything like that. And so I have it on my wall right now. Um, I I don't think it would show up very well if I showed it. Well, I could try.
Do you have it on your other page? That one page? I just found that by the way.
Oh yeah, it's on Postmortem Arts. Yeah, it's on there.
Yeah. I
So
just
it
saw that and started following it.
yeah, I posted the photo of it and it's I was really careful about it because as you know, like molts are not solid. They're kind of
Right.
like what's a good way to describe it to someone who doesn't know what we're talking about?
They remind me of like flower petals sometimes, like what are those paper flowers?
Yeah,
You
something like
know?
that. It's very fragile.
Yeah.
Um, so I was really
Especially once it
careful.
hardens.
I was really careful not to mess with that. And so it's all whole. It's interesting to see. It's sad, but I'm glad I was able to do something with it.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So
I haven't.
that being said, it looks like you're interesting enough for about 3 hours.
Somebody will be like, "Oh, I shut her off after 30 minutes."
I'm sure someone out there will, but who cares? Um, I'm really happy that you decided to come on, and
Well,
I
thank you.
let's see, if people want to find you, where do they go?
Wannabe_entomologist on Instagram. Same name on YouTube, although I neglect my YouTube like crazy. I don't know
I
why.
was
I think,
noticing that.
yeah, Instagram is like building. I mean, it's taken me this long to get that many, but Instagram is very friendly. All my followers are pretty good. They all know what I do, and it's a good
Mhm.
environment. You go to YouTube and I post a video, and it's just
The
horrible
random,
comment after horrible comment after, and I'm just like, forget it. I'm never posting again. And then I leave for a while. But
yeah.
I just, it doesn't affect me in the long run. I just can't stand people that are just jerks to be jerks in
It's
the comments.
difficult
I don't understand that part of society at all. I just don't. And I have to
when
fight myself.
you are
Saying,
anonymous and faceless,
yeah,
you all of a sudden are a very courageous person.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I made a meme the other day. I don't know if I posted it. I've sent it to a few people that
Hmm.
have messaged me or sent a crappy comment. Um, why is it always the people leaving these type of comments? They're always on a private account,
Right.
always.
Yeah.
It's never public, ever.
Without failure. Yeah.
Yeah, either zero posts or they have posts, but it's private.
Hmm.
It's just that's the part of society I will never understand. I just don't understand being the person that goes around to just spread negativity. I mean, I understand they're unhappy. That's why they're doing it. They can't. I tell my kids this all the time. Kind people don't do that.
Yeah.
So there's no way these people can tell me that they're happy or kind and be doing that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I have to fight my own inner demons of reading them back. So I just want to say
Right.
something, you know.
I've heard a
So
lot of advice to say that you just should never look at comments.
yeah,
But I think it depends how big you are,
yeah.
you know?
I know from Instagram, I do not want to be a celebrity because
Yeah.
anytime any of my videos have gone out to like Unilad or Daily Mail, the comments I never read them anymore because
Yeah.
99% of them are not only horrible, but sometimes they're really sexist and gross.
Mm.
How you make those two comparisons because I posted a spider is beyond me, but it happens. And they're really gross things that sometimes, and I'm like, so now whenever anything goes out, I don't,
Yeah.
the big ones, I don't read the comments at all. I won't
Yeah.
even, people will tell me, did you read the comments? I'm like, nope, I don't do it. I don't even respond. My Instagram, I don't read all of them, but I will, if it gets
Well,
kind of bigger, I'll
good
shut
for
people down
you.
and block them.
That's a good
Yeah.
move to not
Yeah.
pay too much attention to people that are not really in your fan base.
Right. On Instagram, I do a little bit, but mainly if I see it, sometimes I'll respond, but I block every one of them. Just I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't even want you to even come around again. So
Hmm.
just hateful and happy trolls.
Yeah.
Part of it, I guess, but yeah,
It
didn't
comes
used to
with the
be that way.
territory.
Yeah. I can't imagine what real celebrities and real famous people deal with. It must just be
Yeah.
endless,
You kind of understand why
endless.
they just kind of disappear. They don't
Yeah.
interact.
Yeah, I totally get that now. Why
Mhm.
some of the really huge famous people don't respond to comments, they don't get in the DMs, they don't do any of that because
Yeah.
it's fruitless, completely fruitless.
Yeah.
People are always going
It's
to
just gonna
hate.
affect you real poorly.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
anyway, awesome. Thank you so
Alrighty.
much.